we have to get right into it. Season 2 dropped on April 1st, and I mean, we're doing a podcast for a reason. The community backlash has been absolutely apocalyptic. You would think it's the end of the world. My question to you guys is it? I mean, at this point, we have seen so many problems with the game, bugs, I mean, broken moves, complete moveless. Like, no one really has a weakness anymore except for Lee Chaolon, RIP to you. At this point, is this game even recognizable as Tekken? Is there a way back? Who wants to take the floor?
Yeah, so
I'll let Tekken do that.
I've always been one of the more optimistic ones. I do think that there is a way back. I think that we can bring it back. It's going to take a lot of work. We have basically just been granted this pile of rubble and ash and detritus, and we've been told, okay, eventually, maybe you can build a skyscraper. Have fun, make it work. Give us some direction on how to build it for you. A lot of the new moves are going to make that much more difficult.
Yeah.
A lot of the new moves have been given so many properties.
Oh, we don't like homing mid plus on block range 2.5 for Zafina?
When we're doing it.
She needs
I like it when I like when I'm doing it. I don't like when it's being done to me.
I don't think anybody does. All right. Malcolm, what are your thoughts? Can they come back?
In Tekken 8, no, they definitely cannot. But I do think there's one good thing that will come out of this. I see online a big discussion about what Tekken means to them. Everyone has some different idea of what Tekken is to them, whether it be the use of backdash to create whiff punishment, whether it to be using sidestep to create more defensive opportunities. I do think that with this resurgence of everyone going back and playing the old games, that the developers will realize that the depth and complexity that they're slowly been getting rid of since, season 3 of Tekken 7, that's what brought in a lot of people, and that's what is Tekken to us. And the more that they try to strip that away, the more that people are going to fight back against it. It sucks that the community has been so divisive about what Tekken means to them and calling each other wrong, but at the end of the day, there is a lot of opinions out there that devs can now look towards to build the future of Tekken instead of what we have now. I think Tekken 8's cooked though. There's no coming back from this. Let's bring on Tekken 9. Hopefully this will save us, right?
All right. I have to lead into the eternal optimist typically over here, down right there in the corner, Mr. Tiny.
Listen.
We already know.
Listen,
you
bro.
say listen.
Is it the end of the world? No. Is it the end of Tekken 8 though? Since they've proven, I think, that this is a competency issue. So the chances are slim that they fix it on purpose.
Yeah, see, I agree with you on that. I'll go to Brenton, but that will be something I expand upon in a minute.
As far as if it can be fixed, short of rolling back patch or doing a completely new launch of the game, like a Bloodline Revolution. What was BR? Get the second word on that one. Or the console version of the remade version of 7, where they changed a lot and come back and just basically soft redesigned and relaunched the game. I don't see Tekken 8 being Tekken anymore, just because of them. Even if they keep this patch, say they fix the bugs, they try to rebalance what they've done, they filled in so many holes that I don't see a way Tekken, the way people recognize it or love the game, can be played within the bounds of Tekken 8 right now. It's going to look very different. They could balance it. They could make a very fun game probably out of it with some really smart decisions, but it will not be Tekken because of what they've done. They would have to roll it back or completely redesign the game and relaunch it, in my opinion, for us to get Tekken back.
I just don't even see them even considering reversion at this point, though, because they put so many resources into the game. You know, that's been what they spent their entire development cycle on, is doing this big season 2. All the man hours, all of the time putting in the, you know, the assets to give us all these new broken moves. It would just be such a financial loss for them. And honestly, an admission that they failed, like, spectacularly. Because if they revert and we go back to season 1, like, I know that that's what we want, right? But it would look absolutely horrible for, I guess, the people that matter, according to them at Bandai, right? Like, if you go up and you tell your shareholders, hey, so we just fucking dropped however million of dollars that this, of a manpower that this update took us to make, we just flushed down the drain. Like, because reversion's not going to bring in more sales. Let's be honest. Like, if I'm trying to promote this game to someone who hasn't bought it before, hey guys, good news! The game hasn't changed in 15 months. Like, it's not going to bring anyone in. It won't bring anyone in. So, like, I think everyone here is right. I think the core of Tekken has been damaged severely. I'd like to have whatever OBCash is coping on a little bit. I want to see the way forward. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying, if it took a 1500 patch note patch to destroy this, then I think a 3000 patch note patch is exactly what we need.
But you know,
I will personally go through and readjust all the moves myself.
Well, if I could vote you to do it, then then I would imagine that there would be hope for the game. But do I trust Shimbori, Nakatsu, Murray, Harada? I mean, they kind of got us here, right? Like, it's what Tiny was touching on earlier. It's the competency issue, right? So it's like, we have to think of it this way, I think. They drop these 1,500 changes, and, like, you don't drop a new season of 1,500 changes go, oh yeah, the players are going to fucking hate this. No, that's not what you do, right? They're like, oh yeah, everyone be so excited. 1,500 changes. They're all ass. Every change, ass, except for like 2, right? Sidestepping and input buffering. Everything else, ass. 1498 ass. And they're like, yeah, this is good. I don't know you can fix that. How do you fix, like, I don't know, man, like, how does the fucker unfuck? I don't know. I don't think it's possible. Once it's fucked, you can't unfuck it. I don't know. It's really hard. And you know what? The community's been in all different types of sorts right now. I kind of want to pick everyone's brain on this, because I know that I haven't seen anyone here get violent or with threats or lose their minds on Twitter. But I'm sure that we've all seen that the community backlash for both the people that love Season 2, which there are very few, but they exist. We see you. Maybe need a padded wall for you, but we see you. And then the people that hate Season 2, things have been pretty wild. Obviously, I'm sure you guys all saw FDX put out his post and some of the threats that he's gotten. Main Man's made a video. Of course, we got the other side of that coin. We have some other content creators that are promoting harassment and threats. I'm not going to name them, but they're there. What do you guys think about the community turning on itself in all of this?
I think it was always bound to happen, to be honest with you. I do feel like a lot of the content creators are very divisive in what they say, and they try to form opinion very, whether they mean to or not. I feel like they're very manipulative in how they get their community to view the game. And because of that, once there's a clash of ideas, those communities start fighting with each other, and by way of that, are starting to go after the creators now. At the end of the day, it's not that deep. It's a video game. There's plenty of other video games that are fun to play, even older Tekkens that are fun to play. So I haven't played Tekken 8 in a while, but I've been playing Tekken 7 every day, and Tekken 5 DR and Tag 2. Like, those are all there for us to enjoy, and I'd rather use our voices collectively as a group to get to where we all want to be, There's a middle ground that exists somewhere. Like everyone talks about Tekken 5 DR being like one of the greatest Tekkens ever. If that's the case, then why are we fighting with each other about the things that we dislike rather than fight for the things that we like? You know?
Yeah.
Kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these sort of ideological divides have always been in the community, but usually it's over smaller things like characters. I'm sure plenty among us have said things about certain character mains without naming any certain characters.
Kunimitsu did nothing wrong!
I didn't say anything.
Right, certain characters have definitely had their mains dragged through the mud for one reason or another. And this is sort of an extant form of that, where it's more than just the character. Now it's just the entire game. Yeah. It's one thing when you just hate a character and say, this character, I hate them, they suck, I hate their moves, I hate what their mains represent. Fuck them. It's another thing to be like, wow, the entire game is just trash, and now I hate it, and I hate the people who like it because they don't see what I see.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, and I think that the biggest issue that the community is facing, the reason it's tearing itself apart, is that they don't see what I see. Also extends to this idea of, I'm not going to say rightfully or wrongfully, because God knows how Bandai looks at things, right? If the community has any influence, it didn't look like it did for the patch to begin with. So I don't think that it really does have any influence what people like or dislike when it comes to the direction of this game. But I do think that the tipping point of this is people are so angry about the state of the game and so much want it to go back to any semblance of what it was, that now people look at anyone that is okay with the current state of the game as being like an obstacle to moving forward and saving the franchise. Like, oh, these people that open their mouths, they are going to make the devs think that this is okay. I think that that's where it's like a lot of that fury is coming from. But obviously not justified. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with Bandai Namco. Bandai Namco, in my opinion, should just know how the hell to make a Tekken game. The team's been together for 30 years. They've made so many Tekkens. How do you not know how to make a Tekken? It doesn't really matter what Jim Bob, who shotguns 3 beers in his 30-minute rank session, thinks of the game. You should know what Tekken is. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty much for like a long time has always been my thing. Is that they from like the development standpoint need to know why people like their game, and work within that, because other games like reinvent themselves too, but the developers seem to have an understanding of why people enjoy them. So they don't lose as much of their core players from like iteration. I'm thinking of like Street Fighter in this instance, but I think that one of the main things is that like people like Tekken. I played a lot of fighting games, but Tekken is the first one that I picked up, and it literally absorbed my life for the time that I played it. The game is so deep, and it takes so much effort to be good at that, and it makes you want to be good at it with every second you're interacting with it and watching people who are good at it be good at it. Like it, more so than any other game that I've ever played. And I only started the game toward the end of Tekken 7, and I felt pretty wounded with like what happened with Season 2. So I truly can't imagine how someone who's been playing the game for multiple decades feels. And I'd imagine it takes a great deal of maturity and like self-awareness to stifle that anger and like put it in the bin and not yell at someone. Obviously that stuff is not okay, but like,
yeah,
I don't know, like if there was a community in fighting games that was gonna go ballistic because their game got swept out from under them, it's a Tekken community for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%, for the reason that you said too, which is just, this is a legacy game, right? That the people that play it are so diehard and they don't really know anything else. So the radical change, even without it being completely botched in the way that it has, the radical change was always going to lead to conflict. It just always. I mean, even Season 1, like, I'll be honest, you guys know, I thought Season 1 was just absolutely brutal and not Tekken to begin with. I didn't engage with the game that much.
Yeah.
And I know that I wasn't alone in that. So, like, even when the direction was not so obviously broken, it was already divisive. So the kettle here, I think, has just exploded, because now it's like, you know, I'm going to say it a little bit here because I remember telling a bunch of people here that this shit was going to get worse. Like, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Brenton is laughing over there. He's also been on the same track as well. So what are your thoughts there, Mr. Sage of the old Tekken era, the oldest competitive vet amongst us?
I will say that the very problem that they see, well, it's not really, I don't see it as a problem, the tech community doesn't see it as a problem, but it seems like Bandai Namco sees it as a problem. The very thing they're trying to fix is the very thing Tekken players like about their game, which is it's been pretty consistent in its base, and they've only been adding to it for over years and years and years, right? And it's, as a fighting game, it's kind of unique. For better or worse, in that there's a huge knowledge mountain you have to climb before you stop fighting the character and start playing against the other player. And when someone has put in that time over years and years, and now over decades, players, and they've refined their art, and they're playing the game, and it takes such a long time to get to that part where you're not really finding, because I remember when I started, there was those little victories where you, oh, this thing is blowing me up. Oh, this is the counter. This is how you get around it. It's okay. Well, that knowledge check is no longer an issue anymore. So now that person has to stop using that, and then they'll go probably to their next knowledge check, because there's that many knowledge checks in Tekken. And then finally, once you get to the other side of all these knowledge checks, the person has to play you. Your decisions are constantly changing. You're constantly adapting to each other, and it takes such a long time to get there. But that's also like the blessing and the curse of Tekken. You put in all this time, you gain all this knowledge, you gain all this experience, and then you finally get to play the game of Tekken. And these people have been playing that game for decades, and then the rug just got pulled out from under them. That Tekken is gone. Because they've removed all the layers, and under the guise of trying to make it easier for casuals to not have to learn these knowledge checks, so they don't have to defend against all this stuff. But all they've really done is made it even harder for the casual, and they need to learn more on how to dodge more things, more very specific answers, because now everything has a specific answer and a specific counter, and there are no layers. And this isn't just a Tekken 8 thing. This happened in Tekken 7. I mean, when I played Tekken 6 and Tekken Tag 2, you know, movement was looser. One of the biggest things that a lot of the OGs were talking about with 7 was the movement sucked. And from my perspective, you know, I was already getting a little older by then. It increased as my time went down. The amount of time investment I needed to put into Tekken 7 now, with this more stricter timing-based, knowledge-based movement system that they had going, it's now even harder to defend. As a vet, I now had that much more I had to study with even less time, right? And these are people probably around my age or even older who have put in even more time than me and have perfected their craft throughout years, and this keeps happening to them, right? They had very strong movement. Movement's weak. Oh, okay. Well, now I'll just use the limited movement I have. Well, now we're going to put these moves in it so you can't move at all. Oh, and by the way, there's even more knowledge checks. Oh, by the way, we added this string. If you don't know what exists and you press a button, that last hit, it's going to counter hit you. And not only are you going to get counter hit, you're going to get launched. You're going to get carried to the wall. Then you're going to get Oki. And you have to guess again, you're dead. And that's your game. And it's just like, when you remove all of the effort that someone has put in the game because they refuse to refine it over the years. I mean, not refine it, because they refuse to remake it the way Street Fighter does, where they take, you know, like Tiny said, Street Fighter seems to understand the essence of what it is that people like about Street Fighter. Whereas the Tekken team doesn't seem to quite understand the essence of Tekken, so that they can move that essence between iterations and change everything around it to keep it fresh. Yeah. And if they were able to figure out how to do that, we wouldn't be here. But unfortunately, they didn't do that, and they didn't do that for so long that, and it would be like someone devoting years and years and years of their life to like a pro sport or something at this point, and then they just completely change the rules, and everything that person has done is like nothing, and all those other times. So I can understand the anger and the frustration of some of the people that are getting very upset, especially if it is their livelihood and they're a pro, or their sole streaming game is Tekken, right? And they're trying to pay the bills. Like that would suck. Like, I went through the mourning process during Tekken 7. As everyone in this chat knows, I was pretty vocal about how Tekken 7 wasn't my favorite. I still play it for fun, like, because it's Tekken, right? especially compared to Tekken 8. It's Tekken, and it's much better Tekken than Tekken 8. But I've gone through this already, but even I, on the other side of this morning, right, I'm watching everyone else be so upset, and I can't, like, get away from it, because I still feel for them. Because even in the back of my mind, I'm like, wow, this is how Tekken dies? Like, this is how it dies? Under a promise of more defense, and then the whole game just gets turned upside down? Like, it's just so... If you had told me that this was how Tekken was going to die, I wouldn't believe you.
Oh.
Like, at all. If you had told me, like, 10 years ago, I'd be like, there's no way. But here we are. And I'm not trying to sound like a doomer. It might not... I mean, there's still things they can do. Will they do them? I don't know. I'm not psychic. I'm not a prophet or anything. But, like, they would have to actually start taking things away. And they've never done that before to fix this game. And they'd have to take away the right things. And that's even harder.
And that goes back to something that well, I guess I'll go to you as soon as I make this point. This just goes back to something that Tiny brought up, which is the competency issue, right? Because again, it's like, if you knew what things to take away, then you wouldn't have added the things to begin with. So this would require them... Because the other thing, too, that's crazy is they've been radio silent for a while. They talked about the bug fix patch, and then we haven't heard anything beyond, like, if they understand why the community is actually upset. We don't know, right? And the longer that has gone on, the more impatient people have gotten, the more I've seen people just dropping off. I mean, the game was at like 3,100 people online around like 10 o'clock last night on a Sunday night. The longer this saga goes on without being addressed, the more this game is declining, going down the toilet. And so, for me, it's like, whatever patch they come up with, not only does it have to be right, but they have to learn the whole game, essentially, and how it works, which they haven't learned over the last 5 years, based off their updates continually nerfing Tekken mechanics. They have to learn how this game actually works within, like, a period of, like, 25, 30 days, or else this game is borked forever, I think. What do you think, Tiny?
Yeah, I think that the timeline is definitely dire. They need to move, like you said, the players are dropping off. Like, I never thought I would wake up and be like, I'm not playing Tekken 8. I liked season 1, but I'm not playing it. And if I'm not playing it, there's a lot of people not playing it. And they definitely need to. It's an emergency for sure. But I wanted to touch on what Brenton said there, like, and kind of like try to say like what I think like the core issue is. I think I feel like they, like, a part of the competency issue is like you said, like, they don't know why, like, what Tekken players like enjoy about Tekken, and they don't manage to keep that like there. And it's like they had a solid, like, even if you want to say like older Tekken was like let's say like Tekken Tag 2 or whatever was like a solid cheeseburger. Then, like, going to Tekken 7, they're like, okay, we need to add new shit, because that's what you do when you make a new version of a fighting game. But this is already the perfect cheeseburger, so what do? Well, we have to add something else. So, like, they add bacon to it, right? And then, like, someone like me, I'm like, yo, the bacon cheeseburger rocks. I love this. But then maybe someone else is like, yo, I kind of like my cheeseburger, which is a cheeseburger, you know?
Yeah.
But we have our little bacon cheeseburger debate for a couple years, and then Tekken 8 comes out, and now suddenly there's truffles on the cheeseburger, the bacon cheeseburger. Now I'm like, well, I miss my bacon cheeseburger. And it's just like, I feel like that's kind of fundamentally what they're doing when they're like, because, like, I feel like if you looked at all of the characters in Tekken 8, none of them needed moves added to them. Like, they kind of, the only one of two things were going to happen when you added a move to any given Tekken 8 character. It was going to be useless because you added a move that had no function, or it was going to shore up a core character-defining weakness that was going to kill a character. And that's kind of what I mean by, like, that, with that analogy. Like, they're adding stuff when stuff doesn't necessarily need to be added. They're adding stuff just for the sake of doing it. And pretty much with every single character across the board, like, they've gotten stronger or weaker in ways that the people who play the characters don't even like. The new Lily running move, the homing Hwarang low, the Brian hatchet, all these things, like, fundamentally change the way the characters play in a way where, like, the new product isn't recognizable anymore, and, like, playing around those things was like the thing that people liked about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Actually, you know, it's interesting. I don't know. Have you guys been seeing this whole debate around this topic? About the CoreA video? Max has addressed it.
I don't know what that's about.
It's been
Yeah. Well, have you guys seen like specifically Maximilian talk about it though? Like,
oh no.
Okay,
because
yeah,
the difference of like the FGC back when that video was made and the FGC now are two entirely
the
different
video's like
things.
9 years old.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, because the Maximilian, it's just because he's kind of like the take of like the casual fighting game, right? Like he's the casual fighting gamer. Like, I thought it was interesting because I actually ended up. I don't really disagree with Maximilian all that much, but I did hear, because he talked about how, like, the philosophy within when it comes to Tekken 8. The reason why it was borked to him was the fact that they also buffed characters like Brian and Nina. So he's like, oh, well, if you would have kept those characters or nerfed those characters a little bit and then brought everyone else up, as opposed to making like the good characters be brought up even further, that further break the game, then like, you know, that would have been fine. But to me, I actually think like, because the CoreA gaming video, the philosophy, you're right, it did change, but the other thing too was he talked about like nerfs opening up gameplay, like different design decisions where you can take the same move and like split into two parts, and then, which is much easier said in 2D games where you have like medium, heavy, light versions where you have that, versus like Tekken where you don't have there's no such thing as like a medium or heavy Magic 4, for example. Like, it doesn't exist. It's just one of those things where I actually think that this was a case where universal nerfs were actually the only way forward. I don't know how you guys feel on that, but like I do think that Tekken 8 has proven the idea of buff even the low tiers up isn't necessarily creative and more strategic, because I actually think, to me, the beauty of Tekken is that you have like 90 moves on a move list, right? That is considered limited in Tekken. That's like Kazumi style move list. You have some guys out there, some characters have 200, right? And so I don't know, maybe I'm just spitballing some bullshit, but to me, I think that Tekken is best played when you have to choose between like a bunch of sort of like mid options. Like, this has a property that tracks left, or you can use this move that's a little like slower that tracks the opposite way, or you can do your slow homing move, but you have to make a trade-off between these. I feel like that's where Tekken shines, and I actually think when you add more options in Tekken, like you could do in other fighting games where that might open up strategy, I think in Tekken it actually tends to limit it, or at least when they add options the way that they do, since Tekken Season 3, Tekken 7, it actually seems to over-centralize the characters. But I'm wondering what you guys think.
Did I comment on
I
that?
can start this one.
Who wants
Okay.
to? Okay, 3 people lit up at once.
I-
All right, we'll go
I have
with
a
Tiny.
very specific point about it.
All right, we'll go with Tiny first.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Go
So
for it.
I watched the CoreA video again on my break today.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he was talking about is how like they how like Ryu had the heavy Shoryu that he couldn't cancel.
Yeah.
But he had the regular one that he could, and how that would let him kind of be expressive in the way that like he uses his reversal. Because like you know like if you watch it like oh, if he uses the heavy one that he can't cancel, he's like making more of a hard read that's kind of sending more of a message or whatever. I was gonna say that like I feel like the type of options that in like other fighting games that characters are afforded when they get new stuff, like oh, your character has a new mix-up situation or whatever, like the characters get more of that in Tekken when stuff is toned down. Like so like if like let's say Dragunov's he's doing this move and it goes into sneak and then you have to hold the mid. If that situation is weaker, maybe not like don't slaughter it, but if it's like weaker like with some finesse, then suddenly all of these lower tier characters might have like character specific ways they can interact with these situations that gives them new stuff without them even getting anything added to their move list. And I feel like that's special with Tekken because of just how like many moves the characters have and how deep the situations are. Like you make a situation slightly more negative, and that's like, oh, now Hwoarang can like manual flamingo out of it, or like maybe Asuka can now reverse this in a situation where she couldn't before. Like these characters gain options without you having to touch them when the things are made weaker and you're given more options to interact.
I agree with that. OBCash, I saw you light up earlier. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so I do think I brought this up way back when we were still in Season 1. But I was always of the opinion that all that really needed to be done was that most characters just needed to be nerfed. I am, and was, the Raven down player. And I probably will be for the end of time, but that doesn't matter. The point is, I would always espouse how weak Raven was in Season 1. And outside like a few quality of life buffs, I thought he was fine. I just thought that everyone else needed to be brought down to the level that he was at.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree with that. That the character levels were like this high for a good portion of the cast. Like maybe the top 20, 25 characters were just way too high to begin with and didn't feel like I always said it this way, right? FDX had made a claim very early on in Tekken 8 Season 1 where he said that he felt if the top tier was Lily and everyone was like Lily or downwards, then the game would be well balanced. But the crazy part about that, and I'm speaking as someone that played Lily throughout Season 1, I even felt like objectively if I took Tekken 8 Lily, Season 1 Tekken 8 Lily, that character would have been right next to Akuma in Tekken 7 to me, right? just the sheer amount of perfect punishment, the sidestep, the two different stance mixes, back turn and feisty rabbit. If you took that character and put them in to Tekken 7, of the legacy Tekken characters, the ones that actually played traditional Tekken buttons, that would have been the best character in the game. And so that was always like very telling to me that character was like considered to be like mid-high, right? Somewhere in that like 15 to 20 range in Tekken 7 Season 1. Or in Tekken 8 Season 1. And yet that character in Tekken 8 Season 1, 15 to 20 range would have been like completely broken in any other Tekken. I think it's wild just how much the power creep is. Hey, Wave the Phoenix. I've seen Wave the Phoenix talk on Twitter. Xiao Yu player, so welcome in. Yeah, but I don't know. It's crazy to me that we've gotten to this point that they've actually done this. Some people still have hope for the game. I'm very jealous of that, Phoenix. I'm very jealous.
I do want to add though. I don't disagree at all with what Tony and OBCash said. I think they're 100% correct about how it applies to Tekken. But I do think in regards to that video, I think people are trying to compare two different things, and they don't realize they're doing it. Hopefully I'm not overstepping by saying that. But it feels like 9 years ago, there was a basic understanding that when you buffed and nerfed something, you were buffing and nerfing the strengths of that character as designed for that character. You were not changing the weaknesses at all because they were designed into the character. And I think what we've gotten to in Tekken 8 is we're not so much buffing the characters in the traditional sense, we're taking away their weaknesses. And when you take away the weaknesses, there's no longer, that's where the counterplay starts disappearing. So I don't even see this as a buffing and nerfing issue. I mean, I guess if you really wanted to like flatten your definitions down, it's buffing and nerfing, but I don't think what CoreA Gaming was talking about is what's happening in Tekken 8. I think we had a much more solid understanding of what a buff and a nerf was and what constituted a buff and a nerf. I mean, this would be like to take his Street Fighter 4 example and just say, oh yeah, so in the next version of Street Fighter 4, they made his DP safe. That's what happened in Tekken 8. They made the DP safe. The weakness is gone. And that would have been absurd back then. They would have rioted just as much as we are now because that would be so stupid. So like, I think people are overreacting to this this video to the point where it's become a little bit of a meme in a bad way. Like it just shows a lack of understanding. thinking that this video and what's happening right now are the same thing.
Oh, really?
Tweet.
Wait, yo, really? Do you have a link for that? Oh my God! The Tekken devs have just responded.
I got it.
Yeah,
There it is.
Immaculate timing.
It was posted out in the Discord apparently. We have a date.
Stream it for you real quick. Here you go.
All right.
Wait on. We can see the patch contents.
Yeah.
Let's pull this up. All right. Do the honor of reading us in. Let's see. This is literally will we have hope? Will we have hope? Live reaction.
The development team acknowledges that following the Season 2 update, the overall game balance has shifted too heavily toward offense. We sincerely apologize that the actual balance changes do not align with the development, intentions, and policy previously communicated to players. We deeply regret not being able to address the improvements and adjustments that the community had hoped for. Moving forward, we are committed to distinguishing between issues that can be addressed quickly and issues that require more time and community feedback for proper review. We will implement a step-by-step update process to improve the game experience. In this upcoming update, we will fix known issues and begin a balanced review based on the following policy. Increase the maximum health value to help mitigate situations where matches are decided through.
I don't know. No, that's an awful idea. No.
Worst thing to do.
Yeah, worst thing to do because it kills poking. Okay, well, how much are we going up by? It kills poking. Don't do that. It's so bad. Okay, you lower combo damage. Lower the. Okay, to just explain this to real quick why we're all going in case you guys don't know. Right, so Tekken historically has always been a poking game, right? And most Tekken players, especially legacy ones, we prefer if we get away from like the 15-second combos and more towards, doing your generic down fours, your down forward ones, chipping your opponent out, not chip damaging, chipping your opponent out through actually hitting them with quick pokes. And so the problem with this is that if you increase the health, right? What you actually do, it's a direct nerf to all of those generic pokes. So it's actually going to be an even larger incentive to go for those launchers, to go for those heat engagers, to go for big Tekken as opposed to traditional smaller Tekken. So this is going to help in a way in the sense that if they don't change combo damage, if that's not one of the later patches, right, which it could, but if they don't, if combo damage is roughly the same, those situations of getting comboed and then mixed for game, those might be alleviated. Those two interactions might be alleviated, but it might also lead to more people just throwing out even more nukes because poking's going to be so weak.
They did the same thing in 7 at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
I'm excited.
In light of the current damage environment trending towards inflation driven by offense-heavy game balance and increased aerial combo damage, the maximum health value will be increased. This adjustment is intended to ease situations where matches are too easily decided by one-sided momentum. Gradual adjustments to overly high reward moves. This update addresses the overall inflation of attack strength and combo damage by implementing adjustments that can be done quickly to moves that provide excessive reward. We recognize this as a game-wide issue rather than a problem limited to specific characters, and we plan to continue reviewing and tuning these aspects progressively.
So combo damage is going down.
Adjustments included in this update: balance adjustments to high-performance moves that can repeatedly create advantageous situations and lead to one-sided gameplay. Adjustments to moves with disproportionately high reward compared to their risk, ensuring fair risk-reward balance.
Okay,
all
so
right.
it's twice.
So, yeah, it's
just
very vague.
The strongest moves. So I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Yeah, it's very vague. It can be good, but we need to know a bit more. Once the patch drops, we'll have an idea of exactly what they consider to be a fair risk-reward balance.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, if you're bringing down the combo damage, just going back to my first point, if you're bringing down the combo damage anyway, then you didn't need to increase the health. Right,
yeah.
I don't understand doing both.
Maybe, and this is gonna be a cope. This is gonna be hoping for the best case scenario.
I'm right there with you.
The health, the health buff, in a perfect world, would just be a temporary fix while they just continue to chip away at the high damage combos, at the crazy high reward moves, and then once they have it at a point where they're like, okay, now we have everything where we want it to be, they can go back and say, alright, let's bring that health back down, actually.
Alright. Rebalancing the offensive and defensive aspects of the heat system. Currently, the benefits gained by the attacking player through the heat system are considered too great. The following adjustments have been made. Revised damage scaling when using heat dash to suppress combo damage inflation. Adjusted frame advantage on hit for heat engagers. Maintaining benefits for the attacker while allowing the defender more opportunities to respond. Additionally, adjustments have been made to chip damage as follows. Reduce additional chip damage during heat. Change the system so that moves which already deal chip damage do not receive extra chip damage while in heat state.
Massive.
Future updates will also include adjustments to the amount of chip damage dealt by individual moves.
Okay.
Future balance adjustments. In the next update planned for mid-May, adjustments will include reducing air combo damage and reevaluating the performance of Heat Burst. Additionally, we will continue to review issues that cannot be addressed in this update, such as moves that consistently create advantageous situations leading to one-sided matches, attacks with disproportionately high reward relative to their risk. Moving forward, we remain committed to incorporating player feedback and will focus on resolving cases of overly dominant character performance and interactions that result in one-sided gameplay.
Okay, so...
Can I bring something up real quick?
Yeah.
I was going to make this point earlier, and this patch just kind of reaffirms my belief in that the Tekken developers have an influence problem. They don't understand their core design, so they look to the community too often to look for quick fixes to get us back on their good graces. And I wanted to ask Brenton this earlier, because I wasn't around during these days, but I was wondering how they would have they dealt with patches from Tekken 6 and Tag 2, if they even did large-scale patching or balance adjustments. I'm not sure, but it seems as the community has grown larger, our influence has grown to the point where it's impossible to just remove moves off of characters, because it's like the arms race, right? Everyone wants their character to have the nuke first, and everyone's looking at that short-sighted gain for their character, but not looking at the overall balance of the game. And I've noticed that problem has gone increasingly worse as the community has grown larger. I don't know if you want to expand upon that and let us know about how it was back in the day.
Yeah, so back in the day, the game that came out on console was the game you played, full stop. I think there was one patch for Tag 2, but it was a content patch. I don't remember anything. There might have been a couple very small balance changes that were so long ago. But I think if there were any balance changes at all, they were very, 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 very minimal. Prior to that, Tekken was always balanced in the arcade. And whatever console version you got, that's what you played. And you just had to suck it up, more or less. And the community was a lot more small back then. And there was an understanding that you were just going to tolerate the game that you decided to play, right? But that was a long time ago, and I'm trying to think. I think the first game to really change that was Mortal Kombat 9. And after Mortal Kombat 9 started rapid patching, over patching, I think I remembered seeing multiple patches per month in that game, but I could be misremembering that. Game patching started to speed up. And then that happened along the same time as Twitter started blowing up, and people started to realize if they could complain loud enough on Twitter, they would directly change that. Whatever they're complaining about in the game, it would create that much of a stink. The issue is, and you hit the nail on the head, I'm not entirely sure developers know who to listen to, because a lot of times the loudest people are missing a lot of knowledge, and there's probably already a counter for something, and they just don't know it. How many of us coming up in Tekken learned that a lot of the hardest characters for us to beat as new players sucked? There were low-tier characters that were not competitively viable because they were all knowledge checks.
Yep.
And if you didn't know exactly how to beat them, they were going to destroy you. And those are the characters that, and those are the characters that everyone would complain about the most. And then, I think there are a few characters almost every single game now now that the rapid patching has happened, where someone inevitably keeps getting buffed because no one knows how good they actually are, and then one patch, all of a sudden, they're just a monster. And everyone's like, well, where did this character come from? He's been there the whole time. It's just no one's been playing the character because either the lower ranks are too busy complaining about the knowledge check characters, and the top players are too busy complaining about whatever the current meta is. And that's another argument we could get into, another discussion to be had about how quickly meta is established now because of online discourse, where entire characters who are actually quite strong and have quite busted tools are completely ignored, only to be discovered years later after they've been buffed for no reason whatsoever, and now they're a huge problem. And that's happened a few times across various games too, ever since this whole patching thing has started. I wonder if community feedback needs to be lessened. I would much rather them listen to the hardcore players. I know this is a divisive topic, but from my perspective, I would much rather them listen to top players almost exclusively, because the casual players, whatever the top player wants changed to the game, the casual player is not going to notice it. They're going to have it's not going to impact them. They're not going to know what to do about it. They might not even know what was taken out was there in the first place. And the intermediate player is probably not good enough to take advantage of anything that's changing anyway. So I would really just prefer if they stopped getting quote unquote community feedback and instead basically did like beta tests for patches. Like, hey, these are the changes we have in mind, and they get some pro players to come in and actually take their feedback, because they're going to find it pretty quick, I think. Now, the community is really good at finding really dirty stuff now. Like, every single time a new game comes out, it blows my mind how quickly certain people are able to find things that are particularly broken or nasty. But while that is like good, I think that the negatives can outweigh the benefits if they're constantly going to the community for feedback and taking the wrong feedback to heart, especially if they're not getting everyone's feedback. Like if they happen to block a certain player, right, who has very good feedback, but now they're not seeing that feedback,
which they've been doing.
Yeah,
right? That's a problem too. That's a problem too.
The thing that's been scary to me about the feedback and the ones that I've seen that are the most vocal, I like how you said it earlier, where you said all these legacy players that have 10 plus years of experience are getting the rug pulled out from underneath them, but those are not the ones that I'm finding that are the most upset about it on Twitter or just online in the discourse. The ones that are the most upset are maybe the ones that have barely made it, quarter up the mountain, where they're just starting to scratch the first couple layers of Tekken, and then they're now getting upset that all that's getting pulled away, but they don't even know what it is or what it takes to get to the top of that mountain, right? They're barely scratching the surface, and now they're getting upset and calling for these balance changes to be made, and then we're kind of just snowballing to the point of no return, where our Tekken game doesn't feel like Tekken anymore, and that's because the discourse has guided us here. We should have seen it coming, just based off the way the online discussion has gone, that we were going to end up at this point, right? Because everyone's, no one wants the depth in the game anymore, unless it's for their character. It's weird to me. And now we're finally getting to the point where, like, oh shit, that depth is gone. Maybe we need it the entire time.
I'm just going to go back to something that I said in a conversation with Tiny, probably about 2 months ago, where I guess my problem with the premise of this, and I agree with you on the beta testing. Actually, I think the beta test would be a good idea. But the one thing that I caution on criticizing the community is, it's like if I show up to a doctor's office and then the patient says, "Oh doc, my back hurts," right? It's like, he's not a doctor. The patient's not a doctor. He knows his back hurts. The only thing he knows is his back hurts. The developer, they're the doctor, so they're supposed to hear the whining and the complaining, because there's always an element of truth somewhere in there, right? Whether it's like someone asks for like 1700 buffs to Zafina and says, I need a mid-homing move to keep up. Well, the answer to that isn't to give Zafina a mid-homing move. The answer to that is the Zafina player feels like they need a plus on block mid-homing move from range 2.5, because the other moves in the game are so broken that this no longer seems broken to the Zafina player. And so they're like, okay, well, they got nukes, I need a nuke, right? So this is like, to me, like, okay, someone stubbed their toe. They now have an ingrown toenail. The doctor here, being Bandai, has, instead of, pulling the toenail away from the embedded skin, they're like, okay, so let me take out the hacksaw, we're going to cut off your foot. That's the problem. Like, you still need to listen to the community. We just need better fucking developers that understand what they're doing. And that just goes back to, like, we were talking earlier about the community eating itself. That's the problem, right? The reason the community is eating itself is because of exactly what you guys have talked about, which is we've got developers that don't have any faith in their vision. They don't know what they're doing. And so people are now blaming the community because the developers are putting the onus on the community to change the game. But at the end of the day, that's still the devs' fault for doing that,
I think the issue with that is that one of the biggest, like, I mean, if you go on Twitter and type Tekken 8, within 3 tweets, you're going to see a tweet saying that they aren't listening to the community. So, like, the core criticism of them, though, is that they don't listen to the community, which I think is where, like, the kind of hiccup gets there.
Yeah, but I agree. I actually do agree with the idea of they don't listen to the community, or they listen to select people that already are in their camp. Is like another way to go about it, right? Like when you see Murray curate his block list of anyone that even gets constructive criticism, like Mrs. Play Stuff getting blocked, Doc Massacre getting blocked. These are people that were not insulting any developer, right? But they're gone. Like, they're just on Murray's block list. Like, if they are listening to feedback, they're only listening to feedback that reinforces the opinion that's already in their heads. So they're not really, at the end of the day, like, you're right, they're not really listening to feedback. They're just gassing themselves up.
So what if we did?
Oh, never mind.
So what if there was like a best of both worlds thing? We had a public test build that anyone can play. Well, only PC players really. Is usually how these things work. And that's not me. I just decided to exclude people. I should probably specify. To my experience, a lot of games that have public test builds usually only run it on PCs. But they can also invite a few of the professionals, the pros, the people who have been Legacy's talent for years now. And like they did with the beta test all those years ago, back in the olden days, they invite them over, have them play test, the beta that they're running, the patch notes that they're planning out, so they can say, hey, from a balanced perspective, what do you think of what we have now? Is there anything that you notice as a professional that we can move forward with? And the public test build, that's great for just raw numbers. What's the really broken stuff? What's the real secret sauce? What's the crazy stuff? It's basically tantamount to having like more playtesters than you could pay for, with the allure of being able to play the game early.
I think
the pros can really, sorry to interrupt, but the pros can really sort of help drive the direction, or help at least steer it, so that the devs can take the wheel and drive it to safety.
Yeah,
if they know how.
I think the biggest problem with that is that the feedback that I noticed that they listen to the most is Twitch chat when TWT is happening. That is their biggest problem. And what does everyone in Twitch chat say about, especially, and this is how we knew we were doomed. Exactly. What did they think of high-level Pro Tekken and Tekken 7, or any other Pro Tekken? They said that, or they are of the opinion that high-level Pro Tekken was boring. That they didn't like how you spent a lot of your time not interacting with each other. I say that loosely because I think movement is a way of interacting with each other. But they view the game as like movement heavy, like spacing and all that, as being boring. And they read that in the Twitch chat, and then they balance the game around that. So why would the pro opinion be the one that they go to when everything they've done is to go against the pros? Like, that's been the biggest problem from the jump. Like, they listen to the Twitch chat way too much, about how boring high-level Tekken 7 was. It was only boring because we played the same game forever. Like, it wouldn't have been boring if you just released a new game. I understand COVID stopped that because, you know, it was COVID. But still, like, they listen to that Twitch chat way too much, and that's, like, how they get their instant, like, feedback. And they just follow that. They chase that idea way too much. And that, like, pro opinion is never something that they've actually wanted. They just want, like, the casual Joe Schmo opinion. I don't know how anyone else feels about that.
Well, I know I agree with you.
I think.
Go ahead, Brenton.
I was gonna say, I think that's a Tekken 7 only problem, because at least as long as I've been around, I don't remember anyone thinking high level Tekken was boring.
Well, no one was watching it. I think.
Yeah, no one was watching.
Like,
well,
no one.
There were. Well, this
was a
this
very
was
niche
prior
thing,
to like
you know?
like Twitch and stuff, right? So there would be other tournaments, and there'd be people watching high level Tekken, and more often than not, they enjoyed what they were watching.
100%.
It was just that they felt like the barrier to entry was too high, and the idea that a high level Tekken 7, especially at the end, was so boring. Like, we have to remember that only happened because of their efforts to level the playing field in such a way that they gave everyone extremely powerful tools to the point where it was just smarter to not hit a button, and all they had to do was nerf those tools, and there'd be a lot more buttons pressed.
Yeah.
It's like they it goes back to when I said that where they might not understand like what makes their game like tick, because if they did, then they would know why everyone was suddenly passive. They would know that it was the tools they gave the characters that caused the pro players through risk-reward analysis to understand that it's better to not use big buttons, to not attack too much, and to move backwards and always block unless they found an opening or caught on to someone's timing. If the punishment wasn't so bad for hitting the button at the wrong time and getting launched into oblivion by a safe counter hit launcher, which, sure, maybe not all of them were safe, but like more often than not, like it was for counter hit fishing at the end of Tekken 7, pokes, counter hit fishing, and then like even like pros, you know, they're whiff punishing with smaller buttons because the whiffs are smaller, but every once in a while you get a big oops, and then they get launched, and then, you know, that would be game. But it was played like that because of the tools they put in the game to make the game not play like that.
Well,
So I agree with everything you're saying there, but there was a very eye-opening viral tweet that went out maybe a couple weeks ago of a Tekken 6 match, and I'm sure all of us here have seen it, but the Just Frame James knee MLG match, which is one of my favorite matches of all time. But the amount of people that I've seen interacting with that tweet saying that that match was boring to me is what really scares me. Because even a high-level Tekken 6 play they see as boring, or at least the modern Tekken audience sees as boring. I'm not saying that's what they saw back in the day, but the modern audience thinks that's still boring. They look at early Season 1 Tekken 7, knee JDCR matches that I think were some of the most hyped matches of Tekken you'll ever get to watch, see that as boring. So it's not just the Tekken 7 issue. People see Tag 2 matches, some legendary, like was it also knee JDCR Tag 2 matches that people were calling boring on Twitter? Like, I've seen countless matches of high-level Tekken from previous Tekken games get called boring because it doesn't play like Tekken 8.
And to add to that too, I think the other thing is what Bandai needs to consider here is what if these people are just the minority? Because I think that they are, right? Because when we talk about it, like you had, for example, right, Evo, the last Evo of Tekken 7, when the last couple years of Evo Tekken 7, when it was actually main eventing Evo over Street Fighter, for God's sake. Tekken was pulling in over 100,000 viewers on Twitch for that, right? Tekken World Tour Finals, in the final one in Tekken 7, at one point I think capped out at around 75,000, right? So people were watching the game. Sure, the comments might be filled with this, lots of sleep emojis, but if you think about it, how many commenters are there actually out of that 75 to 120,000 people that were watching? It's a handful of a handful of a handful. It's a very small amount, right? And we all know that the negative minority is always way more vocal than the people that are actually complacent and happy, right? So The people that are happy and enjoying Tekken, they're just not typing in those chats. And I think to give you a little bit of hope, Malcolm, because I know you're saying this is what the modern Tekken audience wants. And there's a scary amount of modern Tekken players that want it, sure. But I would direct you towards the fact that even before the Season 2 debacle happened, they were not getting viewers on this game, like, at all. Tekken World Tour final for Season 8, or for Tekken 8 Season 1, the one that just passed before the update, was getting, like, about 35% of the viewership that Tekken 7 TWT final was getting. So even if people that were doing the sleep emojis are now happy, 2/3 of viewers are gone now. So, and it's going to be even worse now. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the people reporting around the world about their local scenes and the state of their local scenes coming out of the patch. Like, I've seen basically posts like that the Sydney, Australia scene has gone from being about 40 people every day to like getting 5 to 10. And then even what was it? One of our friends, 360 Wii guy, running joke. He's got a million names. Lars player. He's from the same scene of some of the best players in North America, right? He's in the same scene as Landon and Trizzy the rapper. And he was saying that they normally get 40 players on their weekend local, and that they only ended up getting 12 this weekend. And then on top of that, I heard another competitor online, Sonic. He was in our tournament chat just a couple days ago when we ran the Tekken 7 tournament, coming in saying that an online tournament got canceled and monetized, so there was a pot involved. That tournament had to get canceled because they only had 5 entrants. When we used to run monetized tournaments, even at the start of Season 1, we were getting close to 100, the Manji tournament. And we weren't even like a big name or anything. It was just that there was money, people were playing Tekken. And so that's like the thing where it's like, you know, the modern Tekken audience that you're fearful of is not supporting this game. Those people that are enjoying this and liking this, it turns out that Bandai's chasing the dragon, man. Like, they're chasing something that doesn't exist. Clearly. It's not being supported. So, I would keep your chin up on that.
Well, I would say that the problem is that vocal minority shares the same opinion of the game as the developers. So, like, the developers didn't like high-level pro play. They saw the vocal minority not like high-level pro play. And now they're like, well, see, look at that. Like, it exists. They don't like it. While there's 80,000, 90,000 people watching this match, and only 10,000 of them are chatting with the sleeping emoji. Like, I do get it that the vocal minority, but they also share that opinion with that vocal minority, so they're going to keep chasing. I don't know if it's Dragon, because it certainly exists. Very small, but it does exist.
Well, they wouldn't chase it if they didn't think that there'd be more money at the end of that Rainbow, though, which there isn't, as we're starting to see.
Yeah.
I'd like to have the two opinions of the guys below me here on this. What do you make of this? Was there a fundamental flaw, you think, with the entertainment value of Tekken in any way that required to have some sort of thinking outside of the box like they tried to do here in Tekken 8?
Well, first of all, it's the funny thing that you mentioned about Sonic talking about the tournament, because that's actually, I'm pretty sure, the tournament that I do commentary for. Because that was canceled, the hour we had to cancel it. We had to move it back till May in hopes that the newest patch will bring people back. As for whether who knows? But the entertainment value of it it's difficult to say. Sure, for the casual player, it's very bombastic and it's very flashy, and I'm sure the casual viewer would love that. But not everyone's a casual viewer. In fact, the majority of viewers, as we saw from the drop-off from Tekken 7 to Tekken 8, they want to see more deep, intricate fighting game stuff, and if it seems a bit too complex to grasp at first, well, that's what we have the commentary for. We have the commentators there to help guide you in the direction of, oh, here's why that was cool.
Yeah.
Here's why that was a high-level play. Look at my reaction to that, and how excited I am, and that's how excited you should be right now, and here's why. Right? there's definitely a symbiotic relationship there in terms of entertainment that isn't limited to the game itself. And they have to know this because they keep bringing back mostly the same commentator. Pardon me, same commentators. And I think to that end, the thing I'm most interested about in terms of how they're going to change it for both the gameplay value and the entertainment value is that we're seeing something that we haven't, to my knowledge, seen before in the Tekken community, and that is a mass exodus. Right? We've seen complaints. We've seen plenty of complaints from basically the entirety of Tekken 7, all of Tekken 8. There's always been complaints in one way or another. And probably even before that. But we've never seen it take shape in a way that is actually meaningfully impactful to the point where they have to notice. There's no way they can't.
Not since 4.
Right, 4. I forgot about 4.
Before, I don't think
most of the
was
community
big
went back to
enough, right?
Tag 1.
At that time, I would imagine.
Yeah. God, I don't know. It's just so rough that we're in this position. It's so incredibly rough that we're at this point right now. I'm sorry, by the way, that it was your tournament. That makes me very sad to hear that it was that close to home. I don't know. I think that it's just emblematic of just how bad of a state that the game's in.
Yeah. But I will say I'm interested to see what results of this. Right, like I said, it's the first time we've seen a mass exodus. I want to see what the impact is. I'm not going to say it's going to be good or bad. But I want to see what happens when something this significant occurs due to changes they made. What is their reaction? Because they haven't had to do something like this, to my knowledge, ever before.
No. They've never found themselves in this state. I mean, because again, yeah, they mentioned Tekken 4 earlier, and that was the pre-internet hotfix. So that game just died, right? Reached consoles, everyone's like, oh, fuck this, Tag 1, we're playing Tag 1. That was it. So there was no attempt to salvage the other, massive failure in this game. But it's really curious to me, because, on one hand, from a train wreck perspective and just human curiosity, oh yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they try to surgically get their way out of this. But as a Tekken fan, I feel like, I'm a big believer in this gaming sphere that once you lose someone, you typically don't get them back. And so, even if they do a good job of basically fixing the game. Oh, Jermanji enters. Even if they do a good job of fixing the game, I just wonder if it even matters. That's my biggest fear in all of this is they could do everything right. And I feel like the game could still die because the fumble's so bad and so many outlets have picked this up now. I wonder if people Tiny. What's your name now, Tiny? Let me read your Tiny Scion of the Hollow Knight. Scion of the Hollow. Yes, this man's name used to be Tiny the Scarlet Lightning for Anna, right? I'm wondering how many people are going to be like that. How many people are going to be like, okay, well, you've given me a month and a half to explore other options, and now. Nah, I like this partner more. You're totally in the past now. We're done. Relationship's over. This is my squeeze now. I'm so afraid of that. I'm so afraid of that.
To set your mind at ease, though, I think you're wrong there. Because part of the reason, almost for the exact same reason that people are getting death threats, people are extremely crackhead addicted to this. Every single day, I look at Twitter and I hope that I see something that says I can go buy Anna Williams, and I don't think that's going to change to the end of time. And I think that that's true for most Tekken players.
You and me both.
I don't think that the passion is going to go away.
I think it's very encouraging that we saw the amount of people playing Tekken 5 VF5 Revo this weekend. I do think that there's obviously a market share for a good 3D fighter, right? And I feel like people at the end of the day, let's be honest, no one wants to go back and play VF5. People want to be playing Tekken. They would rather be playing Tekken, but Tekken is such a poor spot that they're gonna go play VF5, which I think is a shit game. Don't at me, but it's a shit game, and people are willing to play it because they're crackhead addicted to 3D fighters. Like Tekken has always held that crown, but as of late they haven't. But like, just the amount of people playing that shit ass VF5 over the weekend. How many entrants do they have? Like 600?
Oh yeah,
no. Like 600 entrants.
I mean, there's $4,000 in the pot. To be fair, that's a great sweetener to have.
There'll be $4,000 in the pot when Tekken's good again. You know, like that's where my head's at. Like people are willing to play VF5, which is a inferior game to any
God
Tekken in every way possible. Like,
I agree, but we're going to draw higher.
People are just waiting for Tekken to be good again, and
it's also really worth noting that Tekken players are particularly bad at not playing Tekken, even when they dislike it. There's just something about that game, or they'll complain and complain and complain, and then go home and play Tekken. Like,
so
and I think that's always been the case. Even since I started too, I would go to tournaments and I hate Tekken 6, and they're sitting there in the tournament, they're playing in it, and I hate Tekken 6, and it's just like what we do.
Look at Jerry at Texas Showdown, man. Was on this big hate campaign about Tekken 8 and goes to Texas Showdown, makes top 8, like
top 4 or whatever. Top 4 came fourth.
Top 4, yeah, fourth.
I was like, well, I paid for it already, so I gotta go.
You know, like, yeah, all right.
Deep down, you're like, I want to style. The better we get it coming back and winning.
I haven't played since.
Yeah, I haven't touched the game outside of like as a combo simulator since the update drop.
In fairness, Season 2 right now is a little different, but if they even bring it back slightly, I still think that dedicated fans will have trouble. If they can just see a glimmer of the Tekken they love in the game again, they will come back. Even if they don't like it completely, they might not be paying for tournaments, but they will start playing again.
Well,
roll back
because that's just what Tekken players do.
So with that in mind, and knowing the direction that these patches are gonna go, like, what do we want to see coming out with the next couple of updates that will give us that glimmer of hope again?
Oh, God.
Nerfs. They would have to take things away. They have to. Because even lowering the damage isn't going to matter if the mind games are gone. Like, no one's going to care. Because they need the mind games to be fun. That doesn't matter. They can lower the damage, they can lower the plus frames, but if they don't lower the plus frames enough to create true weaknesses, to where counterplay can be reintroduced, it's not going to matter. It doesn't matter.
That's always been the problem with the way that they balance, is that, like, I'm seeing stuff about combo damage and stuff being lowered, right? And I'm like, whenever you guys do this stuff, it's like 3 points of damage. It's nothing significant.
5
so
HP.
It's like, okay, bro, like, we get 5 HP and then you do 3 damage, and, like, how much is the health increase going to be, you know? Like, there's all these missing things and usually these missing things are like, okay, we gave you extra 5 health, so now you can survive the 50-50 and then just hope you don't die and just guard all day and be scared, you know? Okay, I lived through death, now I gotta fight death again.
That's my favorite part of the Tekken 7 patch that introduced the health increase, is that it's like, alright, we've increased health. Now check out all these buffs we gave to increase combo damage.
Keep doing it.
Yeah,
What are we doing?
sick, right?
Yeah, so...
I think immediately...
One thing...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
I was going to say, the first thing I would immediately want to see if they're talking about combo damage, I want to see combos limited to one strong aerial tailspin, a combo.
Yeah.
That shorten the combos. If you still want to have that mechanic in the game, make it to where you can only do it once. I think the limit right now is 3, right? Like 3 is still way too many.
And it's a slow ass animation
2
too.
is gonna be way too many as well. So like, make it to where we get one of those and that's it. Shorten these combos down to 20 seconds instead of these 45-second combo videos I'm watching while I'm sitting here looking at Twitter on my phone while I'm being juggled. Like, shit's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm sure you guys might have seen that video that went viral, the new Lydia staple and the timer, and 4 Tekken 6 combos were rocked before freaking 1 Tekken 8 Lydia combo finished. It's insane, and all for similar damage too. Like, this is the thing that's crazy. Okay, so there's interaction on another post on Twitter. I did retweet this, so if anyone wants to take a look that's watching, you can just check out by my Twitter at Everyone Has a Price to see what I'm talking about. But Lan, the Julia player, I'm sure some of you guys might be familiar with the name. He posted a clip where he was basically doing like a lot of shotgun pressure and forward 1 pressure, and then was eventually able to open up the opponent into a huge launch in Tekken 6. And like a lot of the new Tekken 8 players, or a lot of people that defend Tekken 8, came out and said like, look, like Tekken's always been a game of get comboed and then die, right? But the thing that's crazy, and why I'm even talking about this, is when we talked about similar combo damage despite it taking drastically less time in the old days too. There also seems to be a disconnect with newer players about why a lot of veterans are upset. Because like, if you don't know the game in and out, right, and you look and you see like Lan hit a big launcher, and then basically mix for death afterwards, then you might look and say, well, what's the difference between what Lan did in Tekken 6 with the Julia versus what people are doing now with Heat? And the answer to that is, and I'll post the clip in the chat here if I can find it. When you watch the clip back of what happened in Tekken 6, was like a lot of the time his opponent could have challenged, and he basically made his opponent freeze and like win the mind games. And Tekken's always been a high damage game. It's always actually been like, I don't like when people complain about Tekken 8 and say the problem is combo into guess for game, because we were doing that in 7, we were doing that in 6. We were definitely doing that. You weren't even guessing for game in Tag 2. A lot of people defending Tag 2, but it was touch of death a lot of the time. So it's more about the quality of the interactions. How did I earn that opportunity, right? And now it's like, the problem with 8 isn't that on a surface level it looks like it's still the Tekken philosophy of combo mix for game, but it's the fairness, it's the ease of access to those things. It's the lack of actual counterplay, and I think that is the biggest thing that the devs are missing, and the biggest thing that a lot of the people who don't understand our criticism, like, they're missing that understanding as well. And I don't really know how we actually overcome that, to be honest with you.
I want to say, even back in 7, like, you could see some of the stuff having less counterplay, right? So, you know, like, the breadcrumbs were there, but like they just kind of kicked it up to like 108. And I don't really understand personally why, you know, like I just think that, well, I mean, like, I get it, like, they want the game to be super aggressive and they want you to always be swinging, but again, like I've said multiple times, like, there's other ways to do this. Make your game aggressive and still be able to make everyone happy, or a lot of people happy. You know, can't say you can make everyone happy, but, you know, like, you can make it to where, oh, this is still an aggressive game, but, you know, like, it's still fair. There are ways to go around and do that. Might be harder to accomplish, but it is possible. And yeah. I mean, one of the big things is starting with like, hey, you know, if we're going to make full crouch heat engager an option, maybe it shouldn't be plus 17. Maybe that shouldn't even have left the drawing board, you know?
I think actually this is a topic that is worth discussing, because a lot of people are calling for the heat engager frames to be nerfed. What do you guys think on that? And I'll give my opinion later on. Let's take floor.
I mean, I think that heat is already advantageous enough that why would you need the plus frames on top of it, right? Mm-hmm. You're already buffed up the ass with this new heat mechanic that buffs every aspect of your offense. That, like, why would you need plus 17 on top of that? Like, why wouldn't a normal, say, like a plus 5, like a plus 6? My games are still there. It just doesn't open up these huge moves that will blow you out the water, right? And I think if they wanted to keep it that way, I think the biggest problem with all of this is the chip damage, right? Yep. All these huge moves that need the plus 17 for you to guarantee that after your heat engager, that gives you all the chip damage, that gives you the pressure, are like 20-something frames. So, like, either we get rid of the chip damage so we could do these big moves and then we could go back to, like, fighting afterwards, or we get rid of the frame advantage and you just buffed with heat, and then there's more interaction based off your frame advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, is that the first thing we need to see brought down above all else, not just with heat, but in a more general sense, is that reduction of frame advantage across the board. The reduction of frame advantage, reduction of tracking, reduction of realignment, I think are the three main things. and definitely starting with Heat Engager and even Heat Dash. Just reducing that oppressive plus frame advantage so that either, you have some plus frames, but you still need to enact a mind game after it, or, in the case of Heat Dash, maybe there are cases where you don't have plus frames, and you spent Heat Dash just so that you had a safe launcher, but now it's gone, and now it's not your turn anymore. The risk-reward is still in your favor, because you tried to go for a launcher, and you didn't get punished for it.
Yeah, the +3, +4 situation seems a lot more than +5. +5 is just like 2 simple pokes, and you have to guess between those. And, a lot of people will make the argument that, like, oh, well, it's just like any other 50-50. It's like, yeah, but when you compare everything and you stack it on top of everything you have to deal with in the game, it's just too much, and it just puts another, like, negative into Heat of how oppressive it is. It's like, oh, okay, you have to guess jabber or mid. Like, it shouldn't matter as much as the damage, it's just the fact of why am I dealing with this many excessive situations? You already have enough, oppressive and or advantageous situations as it is, so why would you make it to where, oh, this is +5, and also you get chipped a lot, so now you want to swing back and all this other type of stuff.
Yeah, I want to bring it quickly to the Heat Engager, because I'm probably going to say something very unpopular, which I actually don't think the +17 is a big deal. I see Malcolm's eyebrows raise.
I say so.
No.
Mine shot to the ceiling.
Yeah, so the reason why I don't think the +17 is that big of a deal is actually I think that lowering the frames in a lot of ways, if you're talking about from a casual perspective, like you do want to take them into account as well. Like +17, anyone that's conditioned like us, Malcolm, you hit the nail on the head I think earlier. The problem is chip damage. To me, the bigger problem with isn't the +17, it's that you're forced to take like a bare chip move, right? But if we reduce the chip afterwards and you just defend, there's so many times if I eat a jab and I'm -8, I'm guessing mid or low anyway. So the +17, +8 versus +17, I don't really differentiate between it because also in those situations, we don't really... Who's out here being like, you're going to hold it. So to me, +17 doesn't bug me, right? Like, I feel like people look at the 17 number, and there's been a lot of discussion being like, oh, there's +17, and it's like, I have a bigger issue, like with what Jerry said, with the neutral being so many +5, +6. Like, and just on demand, whether the person's in Heat or not in Heat. Like, the Heat Engager, to me, if you make it +5, like, I get that you get the power up, so it balances out, but +5 frame advantage on a Heat Engager, which might have a little bit of risk to throw it out, because a lot of the Heat Engagers now are a little bit slower, 15 frames in and around. +5 advantage, even with the Heat, like, less frame advantage on hit than a jab just doesn't really track to me. So I think, like, just being like, okay, holding it to hold it, I'm fine with that. It's the fact that it's like, okay, and now I'm going to do, and now I'm in Heat, and I'm Claudio, and now I'm going to do my plus on block running mid, and my plus on block running high, and my fucking plus on block everything, or I'm going to do, the Elisa bullshit and the chainsaws, which are all going to ship you out and are all plus. It's just, it's the combination of all these mechanics. I feel like Heat was just, it's interesting because we always go back to how they hated Tekken. Right, that's kind of how this game. It feels like a game made with hate of Tekken. Like, it's the only way I can describe it, because like I always go back to the IGN previews where they talked about how Tekken is a defensive series because not only can you block, but you can sidestep. So we wanted to give, I'm quoting Murray, we wanted to give a limited period of time where the aggressor could just feel good on offense. So basically, the insinuation being we wanted to make a state where you couldn't move, is what he said. Basically. I feel like when they made that mechanic, they just did not have any care or consideration for counterplay or how it feels to defend. I feel like they actively hate us defending. And that is, at the end of the day, like, what I think the biggest problem. Like, OB talked about how they need nerfs, like nerfing across the board. That is the reality. It's just a matter of whether or not they're willing to do it. And I don't know. Like, even the message we got today was so vague. Like, what are the key moves? Like, do I trust you to know what the problems are with these moves? Which moves, which properties are the problem? Please, like, tell me the answer on the quiz. I need to know if you know the answers.
It's
the
so
fact
weird
that
to me. Oh, go ahead.
The fact that chip is still a thing after seeing all the backlash of all the footage of people basically losing while blocking, right? And seeing everyone's reacting to that. The fact that they're just like, oh, we're going to reduce chip instead of just taking it out completely, because it serves no purpose. If they hadn't made the other changes to the game as well, then I could see chip being an incentive to do something besides block, right? I can't sit here and block forever, but with everything else they've added to the game, chip just needs to go. It serves no purpose that something else isn't already doing, and it feels
100%.
really bad to lose blocking.
But they would
You're
have
already
to.
making people get so often, so it's like you're already going to get annoyed. The mental stack's already going to build up. It's already doing the impact, like Brenton is saying. Like the impact is already happening. You're just making it so much more worse to deal with by having chip on top of it.
The problem.
take it away.
What I was gonna say in that regard is that was the thing that low key. This might be some diet coke right now.
Diet Coke.
But low key. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. But low key, like, I feel like they've gone back and tried to redo the chip thing so many times. Like, they're like, oh, you take a little bit less damage. We're moving the chip damage to this other move. The moves do a little bit less chip. This one does a little bit more chip. Now we're gonna reduce the chip. I feel like I straight up believe this. I don't think this game has chip damage in 2 years. I think they're gonna give up. I straight up think they're
take
gonna.
it out.
I 100% like reading what they're intending on doing to the chip. It is evident at this point. I think that it literally has no purpose. And I actually feel like we're close to bullying them to get rid of it. I'm so serious.
The only form of gray health that I think might serve a purpose, I haven't thought about it too much, might serve a purpose, is after you're getting juggled, if you're left with some gray damage that can heal if you aggress. But that's it.
I like
think that will help.
I like that idea.
Yeah,
I like that
100%.
concept.
Yeah.
100%.
Like concepts
Yeah, I think
like
that would
that, they should do more stuff similar like that. Because I like the gray health mechanic if it's applied properly. But it's just like Price and Max have said, right? That it's the whole damn problem of like it's not this one thing. It's the combination of everything. It's like the game needs to be aggressive, so let's stack 17 things on top of aggression, plus crazy frames, plus not being able to move. It works perfectly fine, guys.
It's weird to me because they talk about aggression so much that there's only one type of aggression that they actually want in this game.
Yeah.
And that's one-sided aggression. They don't want swings of momentum in the opposite direction, which you'd think you'd want that as a viewer to kind of pull you in. You don't like seeing these one-sided matches, but like we'll see games go like, full 6 rounds or whatever, but like it always ends with like one person taking one round convincing, and then the next round the person takes it convincing. It's never like a back and forth. And it's weird to me that they get rid of like, and the more I've watched Tekken 8 Pro play, the more I realize how sorely we need Magic 4s back in the game.
Yeah.
Counter hit get up lows. I've been playing so much Tekken 7 that like I didn't realize how big of a swing in momentum it is to have them try to continue their offense. And I'm playing against all these Tekken 8 players playing Tekken 7. And I'm hitting them with counter hit get up low like so often because they're just so used to running their offense and not even thinking about what happens when my opponent interacts with me. And it's weird because like you'd think the developers would want it to swing in the other direction to where the other person can get their offense started. And then you're going back and forth about it. But then they've gotten rid of all these gameplay mechanics that used to make it to where you can interact a little bit more are just completely gone. Now it's just one-sided. Now it's just steamroll one way, steamroll the other.
I remember being in the trenches on the minority camp because I loved the counter hit get up low. I defended that. I always defended that. I defended that against you back in the day because you hated that shit, and I told you exactly why it needed to be in the game. I'm glad you've seen. I'm glad you've seen the light as to why that's so. Because Oki should require thought. Like this man over here, right? He doesn't love Yoshimitsu because Yoshimitsu is brainless. He loves the mind game of calling up your wake up. He loves are you staying on the ground? Are you tech rolling? Do I do the windmill sword unblockable bullshit? Or do I CD1 you on the ground? He loves thinking about those things. And the counter get up low was like another layer of being like, okay, well, do I press this? Like, do I wait and block and launch you? Like, what do I do? Do I low parry you? Now it's like just another. It's emblematic, right? Of what they are already doing, right? The removal of that at the start was another thing where it's like and we're removing another core like strategy that we introduced out of the game. We're removing depth out of the game. And I always thought that the people that, and you know who you are, you know, not the people in here, but the people in the community that kept saying, I keep getting counter hit low. That's cause you kept fucking autopiloting. I don't know how to tell you anything other than that. If you kept getting low swept on wake up, you were just not ever considering the option. That's a player fault, not a game fault.
I remember talking to a few people about the Magic 4, and they're like, "Are you crazy?" And I'm like, "You got," and I tried to make the point that you have to remember, Magic 4 had counterplay. Yep. We've had multiple things that were like very like more egregious in some ways than Magic 4. Like, yeah, maybe you weren't getting counter hit and fucking taking a lot of damage, but it essentially did a very similar thing. You know, and so people are like, oh, well, it just did too much damage. It's like, okay, well, have them scale the damage back. But right now, like, Wake Up 3s and Magic 4s is going to make people like, oh, shit, I'm going to blow up if I eat this. So if that came back, it would help a lot. And what, you know, it's very similar conversation as what Price made about like the heat burst being nerfed, right? Because it made it to where aggression for certain characters like Drag were just like, oh, well, now my opponent's going to second guess heat bursting me because I can just move around it all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
I was going to say though, like, I feel like that's kind of like, I feel like that like we're getting a little lost though with that, because I feel like at its core, like the idea that like, okay, you have a wake-up option that makes your opponent have to press you differently on the ground, and the idea that you have a fast option that is moderately rewarding that can punish your opponent for that can punish you like you can use that to call out gaps in your opponent's offense. I feel like we can have that without it being the way that it was before, where the reward is like full combo damage to the wall, 70% or whatever. Because I feel like one thing that they did in a good way in Tekken 8 in a handful of places is that the reward for these things were not your opponent died. It was that the momentum shifted heavily in your favor, and then you both got to play more of the game, and not that like if Jin hits me with Magic 4 now, I'm like, fuck, this sucks. But it was way worse if he hit me within 7, right? And it's
I disagree
with you. Yeah.
Really? You died!
Jin and Heat, you don't get to press a button for 30 seconds. Like, I don't interact at all.
With the Magic 4 hit me in Tekken 7, there was not even the I'm dead, you know?
In Tekken 8, if I get hit with Magic 4, because Magic 4 will give you 1+2 guaranteed heat engager, right? Jin's in Heat. Jin's gonna do the equivalent of Tekken 7 combo damage with his chip damage, and I'm gonna have to hold that until he's out of heat, and I might even die in that interaction. I've died to it plenty of times. Dive kick into the 3+4 legend kick into the heat smash, that wall splats that gives a full combo. That is infinitely harder to hold than Jin Magic 4 and Tekken 7 for me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've had a bunch of times where he hit me with the Magic 4, he started to do that, and I hit him, and then I beat him up.
Let me vindicate Tiny real quick, because what he's saying in a vacuum makes sense. Because the biggest issue with the counter hits in 7 was the reward. So if you're looking at it in a vacuum of just the counter hits, right? What he's saying makes sense. He's saying he likes the counter hits the way they are now, specifically Jin's Magic 4, because the momentum shift is there, but he doesn't explode. If you take that in isolation without counting in the heat, that makes perfect sense to me. I can agree with that point. Unfortunately, heat exists. So if we look at the whole picture, it doesn't mean anything. But I see what you're saying, because I agree. Yeah, I agree that we need those tools for momentum shifts. It's just in the context of Tekken 8, the nerfing of those momentum shifts, that, you know, they still serve their purpose without having such a high reward.
They don't. I would disagree with that on that. To be honest, I actually don't think the Magic 4s do serve their purpose. The way that they've gone about nerfing them, Jin's the exception where he can go into heat, but there's other characters where it's just like, okay, I Magic 4 you, then I get a follow up, and I'm doing like 38 damage, and I'm not scared to press back into that immediately and push my aggression. I completely disagree with the idea that Magic 4 even serves as, like, the ones that are still in existence, with the exception of Jin. I feel like they don't serve their purpose as a momentum shift. I feel like they aren't scary. They don't get people to be fearful to change their timing at all.
Yeah.
It's also because of the existence of heat as well, right? Because that's the other thing, and you have so much, and players think they're fucking invincible in this game. Like, let's keep it real. You know, so like if they take 50 damage from a Magic 4, they'll be like, bro, I'm just gonna do that shit
Yeah.
back to you all day, no problem.
Yeah, but that's
Well,
the
the thing
problem
is,
is heat's
if
not
there's-
going to go away. But that's my
Yeah.
main point. Heat's not going to go
Yeah.
away, right? So that's the problem is if we're winning, because they're never going to give up heat. Like let's just put it out there. Heat's here to stay. The God mode's here
Yeah.
to stay. They're never going to sit here and take that mechanic out. So I feel like the combination of giving us this God mode, but then at the same time nerfing the momentum shifting fast counter hits has led to this absolute utter disaster piece of hyper aggressive Tekken. And I feel like even though Tiny might not like being taken for a long ride on Jin Magic 4, that version of Tekken 7 counter hit with a combo would at least allow players to think, oh fuck, alright, maybe I have to not play immediate timing, because you get rewarded for immediate timing
Well,
just
hold on,
consistently.
Hold on. We could,
That
Let Brenton cook.
we could.
Go
I
ahead.
think what Tiny's saying, we can have a different discussion about has the reward been decreased too much in 8 for the counter hit. The issue was it was too high in 7. It's too low now. But I think what Tiny's saying is that with it being lower, if it was done better, right? So maybe the reward should in fact still be higher. Maybe there should be a more reward for it, which I agree. I think it's too weak. But I don't agree that it should be as high as it was in 7.
Yeah.
So I know we started detracting and going into like the interactions with heat and stuff. But if we take this in isolation, the fact that it's weaker is good. It's too weak, which is bad.
yeah.
But I can agree with Tiny that it feels better to get hit by a momentum shift that's weaker, like the one in Tekken 8, than the one in Tekken 7. I do think it needs to be stronger than Tekken 8's, right? So we started going into a whole different direction about how it's, it's not the same thing, which it isn't. But he has a point, and I agree that I think probably for most players, getting hit by a Magic 4 and 7 was like, whoa, that was crazy for an 11 to 13 frame attack. That was safe, right? Now, it needs to exist. It needs to serve a purpose, but that reward was far too high. But at the same time, the reward for Tekken 8 is far too low. It might not feel that way because of the heat and all these other mechanics, but I agree with him that in isolation, if you were to, let's say other aspects of this game were to get weakened or strengthened and rebalanced around, you would want to keep Magic 4s weaker than they were in 7. Probably stronger than they are now, but definitely weaker than they were in 7. Because that reward is just absurd.
But well,
I would argue that the reward needs to be equal to Tekken 7 in this game because the offense is so potent.
correct.
That the momentum swings don't mean anything. Like for low parry, for example, right? You run your offense for 30 seconds, and I finally get a timing on your low, and I low parry it. What do I get in return? I get 50 damage.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't feel good to me. Holding offense all day, taking 60-70%, and then I finally get my read, and I only get like 50 damage off of that. Like that doesn't feel like
Yeah,
the risk
but
reward
because
is skewed in one side.
Because
what we
again,
want is for it to be weaker, though, right? We
Well, no,
don't
but-
want
No, yeah.
to
no,
match
no.
it.
But
It should be
here's
similar
the problem
rewards.
is,
Very
well,
cool.
here's the problem, and I think this is where we're talking past each other, is again, like, Malcolm and I think, are coming from the premise that heat's not going to get toned down all that much. And so, like,
And if
within...
offense isn't getting toned down either, then
Yeah.
my swings of momentum got to equal their offense.
Correct.
you
Like,
know?
if we're playing an anime fighting game, essentially, an anime Tekken, then you need to have the souped-up version. Like Tiny, like, I love you. I don't give a fuck if it makes you cry that you're eating a Magic 4 combo. I don't
but
give
there's
two
a core-
shits if it makes you
There's a
cry.
core thing here that doesn't make sense, and I've been saying this since the game came out. When I talked to you about low parry, I've been saying this since the game came out, and no one has ever given me a response that made sense to me. But maybe we can. If the Tekken 8 offense is very oppressive and hard to deal with, is this true?
Yes, this is very true.
Okay. Is
the
it also
defining
true that
feature.
if you low parry your opponent, you gain access to the Tekken 8 offense? Is that true?
I mean,
Yes.
yes, if you have the heat
Okay.
burst ready, yes.
Okay, so how is me low parrying my opponent not rewarding if I gain access to this offense that we're saying is oppressive?
Okay, but here's the thing: how many times have you watched any pro level play lately? Hey Jerry, how many times did you low parry at Texas Showdown? You think?
Not very many.
So the problem with this is you're saying this on the idea that again that we're not playing Tekken 8, where it's like, oh, if I hadn't already used my oppressive heat engager earlier that got me into heat, but that's the thing is like no one is sitting here playing this game with all the ways to access heat. No one is sitting here being like, I'm not going to activate heat till I low parry something. But that's just not what's happening.
That's not even what I'm saying in isolation necessarily. So like, let's jump off the low parry and go to the Gene Magic 4. Are we saying that Gene Magic 4 is better or worse in this game? Because if we're saying that, okay, we need it to be like...
I feel like he gets access to more win conditions, which I would
Because you were
argue is
literally
better.
just saying that getting heat engaged by Jin is a lose condition. That is worse than getting comboed by him.
But we were talking about Magic 4. We changed the Magic 4s in general, though. And the Magic 4s in general, there are Magic 4s that are not giving you heat. And are not giving you access to
And
heat. That
some
only have to
characters
get
that don't have
a
Magic
follow-up.
4s at all.
Yeah,
There-
some
there's
characters
so
that
many
lost them
characters in this
entirely.
game that don't have any quick counter hit to deal
Okay,
with that. So Jin, on top of already being super strong, also has a super strong Magic 4. That is his win condition. That leads into his win condition. That you just can't like do anything about.
So do we think that his Magic 4 is better in this game?
I think so. I would argue it is.
Okay, do we all feel
I
like
can
that?
see it. He gains more like 50-50s and more pressure, and puts you in a situation where a lot of the time, you know, high enough level players with Jin are going to know how to crack your opponent and make them want to fucking mash on
And the
chip.
sad part is about these 50-50s that like your reward for blocking his mix-up isn't advantageous enough for me. Like so I guess wrong, I'm gonna die. I guess right, I get to start my offense. Like that doesn't seem like a big reward to me, you know? I don't know. I feel like he's so oppressive in heat that like even when I do guess right, I don't get much off of it. I don't get enough off of it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be like Tekken 7 reward getting off of it potentially. Something similar, perhaps, but like there's just not enough. Like, and that's the other problem is it's excessive. The devs go excessive in either in a good direction or a bad direction, or it's either a bad direction or a bad direction. Honestly, it's either too little or it's too much.
And I feel like in the case of the Magic 4, and the reason why we're even having this discussion is, again, because it's one more tool of a myriad of tools that they have nerfed defensively, right? Where it's kind of like, we're also at the point now where it's like, okay, so I can't backdash. You removed my backdash, cut me off at the ankles. You buffed this stat, but you made everything track, so you may as well just call it a wash, right? And then you've given oppressive plus frames to everybody. So my ability to even use this new sidestep is very, very limited in scope. So then, like, the only other thing that I would have available to me at that point, I can't move whatsoever. My only options then would be to block and hold chip damage and get chipped to death, or to challenge with something threatening. And the only thing that was threatening for a lot of these characters that was quick enough to challenge was their Magic 4. And without it, there's just no way, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't, I think the biggest reason why we're even having this conversation is if they had not touched the backdash, they had not touched the sidestep, and they kept core Tekken the same and didn't have the insane frame advantage, then if they would have done what they did to Magic 4s, in a vacuum, it might have been a healthier decision for the game than as it was in 7.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
But the thing is, and it's like what Malcolm was saying earlier, where he's like, I need to have the momentum swing, because there's no other way defensively to reliably swing the momentum. So if I'm going to challenge the frames because I can't move, then I need to at least have that you know, I'm risking getting killed when I press an 11 frame to 13 frame button, depending on the Magic 4 that I have. You know, I better get something more than, like, if I'm throwing a 13 frame Elisa Magic 4, I better get something more than just a rocket punch on the ground, because I risked my life for like 40 damage, you know, and I was forced into that situation from the game mechanics. And that's the thing is, again, I just go back. I don't think that part of the game is going to change. Like, we read all those notes. They see their game dying. You know what they didn't say that they were going to do? They did not. Did anyone read
defensive options?
Did it say not one word? Not one word about defense. Not one fucking word. Everything was about damage.
Toning down the offense.
Toning down the damage.
The other thing we also didn't really touch on a little bit is heat got extended by 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So now you're taking even more chip damage opportunities and more options to die.
Yeah. So they're like allergic. They're allergic to defense. There's going to be no further defensive buffs to sidestep. There doesn't look like there's going to be any. There's going to be no. God, we'll all be dead before they buff backdash again. That's never happening. So again, like, I look at those notes and I'm just like, okay, well, they just want us to poke, and they just want us to throw more bombs at each other and just survive more bombs. But they don't actually want us to be able to, like, clip the fucking bomb. They don't want us to clip the wires and defuse the situation. You know, that's the problem.
Yeah, I'm not really talking about, like, what I think the developers are going to do or are capable of doing. I'm more talking about, like from a design perspective, is it is it possible to achieve, like, okay, you have an option on defense that it feels rewarding, but doesn't necessarily just kill your opponent. And I think that a way to do that is kind of what they've done, where, like, you get access to an oppressive situation that because I mean, when you get hit, you're going to be in disadvantage. Like, that's just, like, that's how it's supposed to go. Okay, you got hit by the magic force, so the situation that you're going to have to hold after is going to suck. But if it's not guaranteed necessarily, and it's just an oppressive situation where you get to make decisions, then it can be more engaging while also you as the defender feeling rewarded for hitting the button. And I think that design space is not applied correctly in the game, but I think that it's there for sure. And I think that a thing that would happen if, like, Jin hit his magic 4, I know I keep using Jin, and he's not necessarily exact only who we're talking about, but if Jin hits his magic 4 and then he does his heat engager, and he's not plus 17, I know you said the plus 17 doesn't matter, but what the plus 17 says to Jin is that there is an optimal choice. You do the running move, because it frame traps, and it leads into your highest frame advantage, and it's your highest damage move if they get hit by it. What the plus 17 says is that you always do that. If he's only like plus 8, if he's as plus as a jab, I know he's plus 8, so I feel super depressed, but, like, he can't just run the running move on you every time. You know what I mean? Like, you have a decision, like to make.
3, how fast is that on Jin? I think you still don't have enough frames to challenge that.
I mean, either way, like, so then adjust the frame advantage a little differently. Like, but my point is that, like, it makes it, like, if Jin hits Magic 4, gains access to the heat state, regains the HP, gains access to the buff version of his character that's harder to defend against, but his frame advantage there is less. He doesn't just make the one objectively correct decision into the second objectively correct decision. He has to choose a decision, and you get to choose options on defense, which are not favorable to you because you got hit, but you have options. And then suddenly I feel like we're playing a game where you have your options on defense that feel rewarding, but don't just kill your opponent in one hit. And I feel like they were almost there with some of the characters. And but, like, you know, I don't think they can do that, right? But I feel like they were almost there with some of them.
So I agree with you. Tekken 8 Jin Magic 4 matches the situation in which is being worked here, right? Like, his Magic 4 gives him enough reward to make a swing back in the other way. Jin is absolutely in that camp. But how many people don't have a Magic 4 at all? How many people struggle to get any type of offense going outside of, you know, the top tiers? Like, I feel like, yeah, sure. So let's take Elisa, for example. Do you think she presses her Magic 4 and she gets the rocket punch on the ground? Do you think that's advantageous enough for her to risk pressing the button in the first place?
Well, yeah, that's supposed to exist within, like, the tapestry of the character's offense and moves and whatnot. So, like, again, if Alisa has, like, a really strong offensive situation, if she knocks you down and does her 40 damage and then gains access to that offensive situation, then yeah, that would feel rewarding for her.
But she doesn't, like, get it. They roll away. They just.
But you don't get enough. You don't get Oki off of it, and then you don't get enough damage to justify almost, like, dying if you do get counter hit while pressing.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's currently implemented in, like, the way where, like, that's the case, but I'm saying that, like, I feel like on enough characters in the game, some of the tools in Ice, like if you look at some of the tools, you're like, oh damn, they did a good job with this in the Tekken 8 version. I feel like that about a lot of Hwoarang stuff. But they just didn't do it that well everywhere.
They gave you the homing low that immediately high crushes, and they completely fucked the Hwoarang stuff.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So, like, I don't think that they're gonna succeed, but I feel like it's super easy to just view this as a binary of, like, Tekken 8 bad, let's go back to 7 because it was better. But, like, I feel like this is part of what's disappointing for me, is that I feel like what they dropped was a skeleton of something that could have been good for what they wanted to do and still enjoyable by the legacy, like, players, but they don't have the ability to do so. That's what I feel like is the depressing.
I feel I totally disagree.
I know that's a hot take.
I know, but we're coming from the legacy, like the very legacy side of it too, right? So, like, the problem with it is that I think that the way that they did it was like, it's not even just like, I think even the skeleton's broken. I think that introducing heat as a mechanic is anti-Tekken, in the same way that Soul Charge was anti-Soul Calibur, in the same way that metered step was anti-DOA, and that it killed that game, right? I don't think that there was any way for a lot of legacy players to really enjoy this game. I don't see how it would be possible when the very nature of these mechanics, basically, the legacy players, the ones that actually take this seriously, we're not talking about the guy that comes home from his 9 to 5 and plays for like 2 hours and doesn't give a shit about the game beyond just mashing buttons. We're talking about the people that take this game as a hobby and as a sport, essentially. It changes the rules too much.
Yeah. I think the problem with Tekken 8 is that all your interactions are viewed as a binary. And the thing about Legacy Tekken that always appealed to me was the skill of mitigating risk, right? Through option selects and all that. Big part of high-level Tekken was mitigating as much risk as possible, and you're kind of doing this dance around each other and these interactions that were insanely impressive to watch. And in Tekken 8, it feels like it's just a binary. You either do the right thing or you do the wrong thing. And those are the interactions. And that's like where the nuance of Tekken has disappeared. That we're starting to get this, like, you die if you do this and you die if you do that. Maybe dying isn't like the answer here, you know,
it's
like
17.
exactly, like there shouldn't be.
Yeah, but it's not just that.
Steamrolling offense to where it's like you have to guess one way or the other. You should be able to mitigate risk through a sidestep, through an option select, like, you know, sidestep duck, sidestep low parry, shit like that. That is completely gone from the game because they've added all these tracking moves. They've removed all the momentum swings, the get up blows, the magic fours, the low parries, to where it's just you either steamroll in one way, like I said earlier, you steamroll in one way, you steamroll the other. There's no like middle ground interaction between the two.
If they get rid of the chip damage and they remove all of the new moves and the heat engager is a plus 17, we suddenly have so many options. I promise. There's suddenly so much there.
That's for the skeleton.
Not willing to do that.
That's
though,
the skeleton.
Else is,
no, but again, yeah.
Around this heat engager, everything's balanced around this heat, and unfortunately, heat is just anti everything we love about Tekken.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
And well, the other thing too is even like the installs, right? And then getting all these super powerful moves that have absolutely no disadvantage. Like, the nature of heat and the reason why the skeleton is always going to be, there are no notes. They posted developer notes, which is different. So they gave us what their vision is as to how they're going to address the game, but they haven't given us any like actual details. They're Control F4. But anyway, as I was saying, the problem with all of this game is the fact that the idea of super-powered moves in and of themselves is anti-Tekken. The idea of, you know, all of a sudden this move that had clear counterplay and I use this and I'm punishable, and now it's plus on block because I'm in a state. There's no way around that. Like, Tekken is the game of options. It's the game where you pick either like weaker moves that like are quick, or stronger moves that are big, and there's downsides to which options. Like, there's a reason to go to the smaller moves that track in one direction. There's another reason to go to like the medium moves that go in the other direction. There's a reason to go to the slow homing move, and they all have their advantages and their drawbacks. And Heat just obliterates the drawbacks for so many moves. And even like other moves that they put into this game, and I'll call out a Lily move, even though I think I'll say it again, in the context of Season 1, she was considered like mid-high. But you'd have a move like 3+4 on Lily. Like, and even take away the heat engager aspect, where it's this homing, range 2.5, mid-high that jails. Right? Like, that's part of the skeleton of the game. You know? Like, the whole philosophy of this game has always been oppressive to the legacy player that wants to move. It just always has. From all the new moves have just been very, very oppressive to the legacy players. I don't think the skeleton of this game was made for anyone other than either people that joined End of Life Tekken 7 and hadn't had an established identity within the game yet, or the people just joining the game like with Tekken 8. I think if you played this game longer than that, if you have like a decade plus, this game's skeleton you'd want to throw and bury away.
Yeah. You know, like, I mean, the other thing that makes Heat so anti-Tekken is also that we already have situations where frames change. Why do we need to deal with the state where it's like, oh yeah, this goes from -2 to +9? You know, and having to remember those frames, like, they basically become like extra 50/50s and whatnot. You know, like, to give a very good example, it's like Zafina Azazel Claw. Like, it's armor in Heat, it's not armor when she's not in Heat. Like, dealing with stuff like that is dumb.
What do you think, Obi?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, first of all, because we saw the burgeonings of this in Tekken 7 with Claudio's Starburst.
Yeah.
And I always thought that when the conversation turned to Akuma and his meter, I'm like, well, why do we have this when we have something like Claudio's Starburst? And wow, look at that, it works better, because you had an enhanced state, but you need to earn it. And I feel like, conceptually, that's fine. In practice, what we have in Tekken 8 has become far too much, and a lot of the installs are not only too much in their execution, but far too easy to earn. I'd like to point to Heihachi and his ultimate Mishima stance. To get that, you just need to enter Heat 3 times. You don't need to, like, get Heat Engager 3 times. You just need to enter Heat. You can, at the start of every round, hit Heat Burst, and then after 3 rounds pass, now you have your insta-win install mega buff.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the two become safe in Heat for some reason.
Yeah,
yeah. So it's like
crazy. It's crazy to me too, because like to get these, to have access to these installs, you don't even need to be in Heat to activate them. Like for Heihachi, you don't even have to be in Heat to activate Warrior Instinct. You can just pop it at the round start, and you're good to go. Like Lydia's, I don't even know what it's called, but like Lydia's, she earns more damage off of her strong attacks by just going into Heat and doing like certain moves, right?
And then she's got it.
Like,
yeah.
But that's the thing. Then you have it. Then you have it for the rest of the game. Like, what's stopping us from limiting these mechanics to Heat? Like, if you want to, if you have access to these outside of Heat, then you kind of just break the game. Where like I've done enough good things where offense is already easy to do. I've done enough of my offense. Now I get rewarded even more, and you get another win condition. When like that win condition, if we're gonna make Heat strong, limit it to Heat. Like, there's no reason why you should be able to access Warrior Instinct outside of Heat. There's no reason to get Azazel's Claw outside of Heat. Like, it just shouldn't happen, in my opinion.
I feel like with Heat, like as a mechanic, like obviously, you know, like I'll admit I'm not a Tekken player, you know what I mean? Like I don't have this attachment to the thing 20 years ago that other people do. So I'm kind of trying to look at the new game with an open mind or whatever. My bad. But
that's why you're here. You're here for that.
No.
Exactly.
So I understand the idea of like, cause like one thing that like, and like if you remember me when I was playing Tekken 7, I was talking about how like I liked that the Tekken was a game where like, okay, my character didn't have like meter and stuff like that. My character's my character the whole time. But one thing I will say, like, so if their goal is to make the game like more spectatable, one thing that like dynamic game state changes do is make your game easier to follow and watch and like enjoy, because like if the art design and the design is on point, the game through its visuals is communicating to a layman, hey, these states are changing. Right now this sucks for one guy, right now this sucks for the other guy. And if that's what they wanted to do when they made Tekken 8, if they were like, okay, we want to introduce that idea, that spectatability to Tekken 8 with this heat system, then that in and of itself, I think is fine. The issue is the ease of access, the fucking and the overwhelming power of the options, and the really like no real downside to being wrong when you use them. So like one thing that, I mean, this isn't exactly a perfect equivalence, but one thing that what Street Fighter 6 did with the drive system is that it introduced a mechanic that is similarly powerful in like a way that Heat is, where like you can kind of just pop it whenever, gain access to powerful plus frames, and your moves are all more plus and whatever, and like your moves, your combos when they hit do more damage, whatever. But The downside, if you like overuse it or you misuse it, is that now suddenly you can take chip damage when you weren't before. Now, like, you're gonna die on block in situations where you wouldn't have, and it results in a very like trackable and easy to understand like thing for like for viewers, and it's also like competitively all right. Like it's okay, you know what I mean? It's not Tekken 8. It's not the heat problem. Like freaking there's a. Have you guys seen the High Fight video where High Fight is breaking down the I think the video is called the $1 million checkmate. It's the last situation in Capcom Cup when Uma won with Jury. Have you guys seen that?
Oh yeah, a while back. I can't read.
Yeah. But so he's literally going through like the different situations and whatnot. Like this makes so much more sense if you've seen it. But like he's going through the different situations like that are kind of like the ebb and flow of the match based on the characters or the players' use of the system mechanics, and like it's pretty engaging, and it's engaging in such a way that like just watching it, you're like, okay, I see that. I felt that shit when I was watching it, even if I didn't understand it that much. That is where the heat fails. But it didn't have to, just by virtue of his existence, is what I'm saying.
I guess my question is, because I'm not going to say anything that you said was invalid, obviously, but I guess my question would be like, why would Tekken need it? Because Tekken 7 was so just not flashy in any way possible. The only thing that was really flashy was the slow-mo, but there's always been a lot more effects and crazy flashing lights in 2D fighting games than Tekken. And yet Tekken
had more viewers.
And Tekken had more viewers. So, and Tekken had more and Tekken had more sales. So like this entire premise that you're talking about is great if Tekken had to chase anybody. But Tekken didn't have to chase anybody.
Okay.
Tekken didn't have to impress anybody. Like, so like if they're like, oh well, you know, here's the problem, right? It's like if McDonald's dominates fast food, and the McDonald's being like, yo, I wonder what Carl's Jr. is doing. I should copy that. Why? Why would you do it? Why would be Carl's Jr. should be copying you, not the other way around. When you're on top, right? To quote Tywin Lannister, the lion does not concern himself with the opinions of the sheep, and that's all we saw with this. We led into this game, and the first red flag, beyond any red flag, was Harada being like, my favorite fighting game right now was Guilty Gear Strive. And he had an obsession with Guilty Gear Strive, a game that sold 1/8 that his game did in the same time period. 1/8! So, like, who's Tekken trying to impress? Because the only people it should impress are Tekken fans. And none of us are impressed right now. As you can see.
The only response I have to that is that what I feel like happened, and like this doesn't feel good, right? But like I don't think it was a decision that was made necessarily purely for money. I think they looked at the shit that was going on and they said, "This is my thing. I don't really like it right now, and I'm gonna do something else." And that doesn't feel good, right? But I think that's what happened. I think that's the answer to your question.
So
I've maintained since the jump that this game has only been made for an ego stroke of the developers.
Yep.
That they've gotten all these failed franchises, developers on board, and now they're all like, you know what, the thing that killed our game? I'm gonna prove to you guys that it didn't kill our game. And you guys were wrong the entire time. And now it's killing our game. Like, Soul Calibur DOA 6, that shit died for a reason. That shit sucked. Like, and now we're bringing it here and acting like it's gonna work? It's an ego stroke for the developers. At the end of the day, they're not here to make money, because if they were here to make money, they would have made Tekken 7.5. Like, that's just the reality of it. But no, they didn't want to make money. They wanted to say, hey, like, we could make a good game. Look at this. And then it flopped on its face.
And before anyone, because I see we're getting more viewers, before anyone disagrees with that, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, Tekken 7.5. They're like, that would have been boring. Motherfuckers, we all played it for 7 years. It sold 12 million copies. We still had 80,000 people watching it on the very last year of its TWT final. Like, you guys would not have not bought it if it was Tekken 7.5. You played it.
Everyone would have bought it.
You would have bought it. You would have played it. You would have complained that it was Tekken 7.5, but you wouldn't have a boycott going on like this. Y'all would have kept playing it. We've already seen the opposite side. That's the funniest part about this, as we've already seen the opposite side of the coin, right? We've seen the difference between the legacy Tekken fans and the new age Tekken fans. The new age Tekken fans even when they sat there and they act like Tekken 7 is the worst thing in the world, they showed that they're willing to sit in the litter box and eat cat shit. Like, if that's what they thought, they proved that that's what they're willing to do. But now you're finding out that it's the opposite, right? It's the opposite now. The Legacy fans are leaving. They are leaving. People that you never thought would leave. A.O. Richie, gone. Mirio, gone. I mean, everyone here. Jermanji, gone. You know, Jermanji, been playing this professionally for a decade. Gone, right? I've never been in here for a long time. I've never seen an exodus like this. Never. Not like, sure, people come and go, but there hasn't been one that's so publicly obvious as this. One where one like, it's usually it's like, hey, I no longer have time for it. This time it's like, I don't want to make time for this. It's totally different sort of vibe.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I want to ask OB and Brenton something, since you guys have been around for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Did Tekken pros ever leave like this because they hated Tekken? I'm of the understanding that they just outgrew the game eventually, and that they didn't just stop playing professionally because the game was that bad. Like, up until Tekken 8, I don't think I've ever seen it before. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've seen it.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brenton can probably elucidate more upon this, but to my understanding, the last time anything close happened was Tekken 4, where they just went back to Tekken Tag 1.
Yeah.
And even then, I think Brenton brought it up earlier, when you have a game back in that era, that was the game. Yeah. You didn't have the allure of patch notes or, the future and what the future can hold. You just have the game. And if you didn't like it, tough shit. Play the other game, I guess. It's almost worse now because we can say, oh, well, the future can hold anything. They can do whatever they want. They can remake the game and give that to us completely for free. And to a point, that's what people are kind of holding on to, but the fact that you can hold on to that kind of hope and still have an exodus of this magnitude, I think, is what really is illustrating it for the devs that something needs to change.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, all the confidence is gone.
The only thing I would add about the past is back then, like, the environment was very different, right? Like, there was no real thing as a pro player, right? It was kind of understood that eventually you would grow up and get a job, is how they saw it, right? There was no way you were streaming the game, right? You weren't making money as a streamer, you weren't making money as a pro player. The reward for winning tournaments was a lot of times just getting your money back. I mean, tournaments were cheaper, and you were making a decent bit if you won, like, the really, really, really big ones, but, like, you weren't having a life in it, right? So the investment, I think, because, I mean, this is how I felt, at least. Back then, it was more about the community, right? Like, the game, right? You were all in love with the game, and you would show up at these events with everyone because you wanted to be there with everyone playing the same game you love and compete. And there would be, like, lots of narratives and lots of stories of how different people would interact and how people would come from out of state and stuff like that. So it was more about the experience of playing the game, I think, for people back then. And so when the game started to change and then other real-life pressures started hitting them and you couldn't really make money the way you can playing video games now, they would just leave. So there would be people who didn't like the last mass exodus was 4, but there was also people that didn't like Crush and 5, believe it or not. And then there were people that did not like 6 at all, coming from 5. So they would just, it would be their time to quote unquote grow up, right? And they were at that age and they're like, well, the game's not for me anymore. And they just bowed out. But they didn't do this. Like, there was no, like, freak out, right? Like, yeah. I think this is rather unique.
They just live their lives.
Yeah, for each game, there were people that were like, you know what? This Tekken's not for me anymore. It sucks. I love the game, but this isn't for me. I remember talking to players when I would go to tournaments as a newbie in 6, saying, well, I don't like Bound. I don't like this game. I don't like Bound. Yep. And then eventually it wore them out, and they didn't want to play this game anymore. And then Tag 2 came out, and they were like, this game's for scrubs. Like, I hate this game. And when they would play it for a little bit, and then they would bow out, like, and then they would stop seeing them. But they were typically guys around the same age, right? Like early mid-20s, depending on the guy. And then they would, go and live their life. But it's different now. People can do more with games, and I feel like, and as OBCash said, like, the game can be changed, and there's always the hope that the game will change. There's always the hope that you don't have to let go, and I think that's making it worse. If you just let go, remember it's a game, right? Maybe it gets fixed, maybe it doesn't, but it's a game. Dude, there's so much more out there than Tekken. And I know that's hard to say for people who have put a lot of time of their life into this game. Trust me, I understand, right? I love Tekken, but try not to let yourself get that upset over the game. Like, your life is going to be, for most of us, is going to be very long, and there are going to be plenty of things that we love that disappear.
True.
Yeah.
That's the
smart.
craziest thing. That if everyone took that approach, guess what they would have back? A good Tekken game.
Yeah, they would.
Exactly.
But I would also... Oh, go ahead, Cash.
I think two other things that changed in the more modern times, and, you know, I'm not sure to what degree it's impacted people's perception of things like this, is the rise of social media as a really, like, massive empire of just communication among players, and the advent of game knowledge. Because, and Brent, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but before Tekken 7, I think, the idea of, like, having all the frame data at your disposal and knowing exactly which moves did what to the T was basically dependent on community efforts, and if someone was able to reverse engineer that data and then post it. Other than that, you basically just had to say, well, this move seems safe, and by how much, who's to say? Now we have more concrete information. Now we can say, wow, I can tell exactly why this move is strong. I can tell you numerically why this is good and why this is bad. Having that kind of information... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, there was actually a time when we didn't know that it was 6 frames to step something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
We didn't know that.
And it's possible that now that it's knowledge that we have, it's so much easier to say, wow, this is very strong, or wow, this is very weak. Because now we can sort of quantify that.
Yep.
And it makes it so much more impactful.
You know, it's one of those things, actually, you know, it was a very old school mentality that Harada had, right? When he said, hey, everyone, like, why are you bitching? Just play the patch first, right? But it's exactly for the reason that you said, which is the players can now take their experience, their Tekken experience, and quantify it into numbers, turn it into math. So you don't actually have to, we no longer have to play it out to know how a situation is going to play out. You know.
Yep.
So it is a different era, and I think that might have been, in some ways, actually, to go back to Harada, I think that might have actually been a big reason why he was so anti-frame data for so long, where he talked about this idea of, if I put in the frame data and everyone codes in the numbers, then the magic is gone. And it probably is the case, because if they don't have to release patch notes like this, they're just like, here's Season 2, and they don't have to put down the numbers, and we have to play through it, then maybe some of this bullshit would have been more tolerable or for a bit longer, because we wouldn't understand necessarily the mechanics behind everything so quickly. So I definitely agree that the times themselves certainly lend, for all the reasons stated, between having the knowledge to be able to express ourselves into basically math, to being in the online era, to being in the esports era, all of these things on top of each other for sure must have compounded on one another to lead to this sort of visceral reaction that the community's having right now. We're just way more well-informed and way more invested than we ever were in the past. To add to it too, and I agree with you on the idea and concept. In theory, it's just a game, Brenton, but the problem is, like, it's just like, if they added fucking basketball hoops to baseball, I get that baseball's just a game, but I would never fucking get over it. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know. It depends on how you look at it, right? Because I personally, I'm a very competitive guy, but I also like to try and problem solve, and then I like games that are complex and deep. That's just kind of what draws me in, and Tekken was a competitive and complex game. And I treated it way more like a sport then. Like, I treat it the same way that someone who loves hockey goes to the rink every Saturday to play beer league, or someone goes to the baseball diamond to play sandlot baseball with their buds. Like, I don't know, like, just a game I don't think adequately describes how many of us feel about it, because it's like watching a sport die. It's like watching a pastime die. Sure, you move on, but it's like, it's not like, oh, well, let me go play Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. It's going to scratch the same itch. It's just not that.
I think over time it definitely can.
Union 2 though. No, I'm kidding.
It's just like if you grew up with a certain RPG, you know, like the old Final Fantasy fans versus the new ones, right? It's like once you've changed the game enough, it's really hard to look in that direction and be like, oh, this is good Final Fantasy, you know, and this is not good, you know. So it's hard. And you've got, and it's very similar in the same case with Tekken, where it's like new Tekken players are like, just adapt, man. And it's like, you're just telling me to guess. Like, what do you mean adapt?
There's
like,
no adapting.
You haven't played the game long enough to understand that, like, this road is just guessing.
Yeah. At this point, I've seen enough games change to be completely different products than they were, to the point where I understand what you're saying, how you see it as a sport, and for a lot of people it is a much bigger thing. Like, it's more special to them, like a sport, and it is kind of that way for me as well. But sports have shown stability for a very long time, and games, for as long as they've been around, have shown an immense amount of instability. While I understand that Tekken is kind of like that game.
Yeah, Tekken was the standard
change really well.
Yeah,
it's the one game that's been holding out. Like, the signs of change have been there for a while now, and I've just kind of been waiting for it. Like I said, the older you get, you start to expect it. Like, something's just going to change, and if it hasn't already proven to be stable for a very long time, you can almost expect it to change, and it's just, you're probably going to be right. I'm not saying that people are wrong for being upset. I'm just saying that I think for a lot of people, this might be the first thing that they put a lot of time into that is suddenly different.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It really hurts. I definitely empathize with that. I'm just saying that, and it's not that they're wrong for being upset, because I think being upset is normal and healthy. Maybe not the best way of going about it for some people in the community, but it's a really good perspective to take, to understand that there's, on the other side of your grief, right, there are better things. So to not try and like see it as like the world burning down, even though it can feel like that, that's what I mean by it's just a game. On the other side, there will be something else, even as much as it sucks now. And we don't even know if they won't fix it. By some grace of God, they might actually fix it. Who knows?
I don't think. I'm just saying, Brenton.
It came back to the original question.
Brenton,
will it be the end of the world?
Brenton, I too, like you, am a man of faith, but I don't think no savior is coming down to do the godly touch onto this game. I don't think it's happening. I'm sorry, it's just not happening.
I don't want to be pessimistic
it's not
about
happening.
either, bro, but
Yes, y'all do.
No. Okay, Tiny, present the evidence, Tiny, as to why we should be optimistic. How are they going to learn right now?
Hey, listen, I'm not saying you should be optimistic, but you're lying to me if you're not saying that it feels good to hate some shit and be vindicated. You know that shit feels good. That's why you're smiling when you tell me I'm wrong.
Okay. But you know why? I'll flat out admit this on the camera. You know why it feels good? It feels good not to be right. And no, it feels good not to be right about the state of the game, because that makes me pissed. Because I wanted you to be right. But what makes me feel vindicated is all the motherfuckers that told me I was wrong to be proven right. I'm not happy that the state of the game is this way. I'm mortified that the state of the game is this way. I would much rather be eating crow and being like, Tiny, you are so smart. You were the smartest. You must have gone to Yale and got 5 degrees. You're the smartest of all time. I would have much rather said that and had my Tekken than be right and say, hey, Tiny, you were wrong. Give me that any day of the week. Any day of the week. And the choice between good Tekken and eating crow and vindicated and shit Tekken, I would rather eat crow. Give me the whole fucking plate. I'll eat this much fucking crow. Just get me good Tekken. Please.
Yeah. Season 3 Sour Day Season 3, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's,
One more year.
Yeah, no, hey man, just wait 13 months. That's what they told me the first time. Well, there you go.
Hey, listen, all I'll say, we had this whole combo the other day, so I won't rehash it. But all I'll say is that the whole conversation about there's all this data, kind of comes down to let's focus on this bad thing and then skip that they said it and skip the contradictory good thing that they said.
Let's not go down this path. This isn't. He's referencing a Discord conversation that happened not on film, so you guys might be lost. But we had this thing where we had a conversation about the people that were right were looking at the facts, and the people that were wrong were not looking at the facts. And then Tiny said, well, they also said they'd buff defense, but the argument that we had made, Tiny, if you recall, was that their track record showed that they just don't understand the game, so we had no faith that when they say they buff defense, that they know two shits about buffing defense, because again, why step when you can block and punish? They thought that was legitimate defense back in the day. So...
No, for sure, but that's, again, then my rebuttal to that was, hey, look at this Nakatsu tweet thread where he's talking about moving around buttons in a way that low-key makes sense.
After the damn...
Hey, wait, maybe they get out that way at all,
after...
Which is exactly my point, though. That's what I'm saying, I'm not crazy.
In a vacuum, those changes all track, but then look at the
then they did
amount of
other
situations
bullshit.
they added to where you can't walk, you know? Like,
yeah, but the other thing, too, is, again, and as I told you before, and we're going to get lost in the sauce, so I'll drop it after this. But as I told you before, that Nakatsu post you referenced came after the Tekken talk where they already showed us a bunch of homing mids that were clearly plus. And so it was like, okay, you can't point to the Nakatsu thing and say, look, he's talking about stepping, when after I already saw the homing moves that were plus on block at the Tekken talk, I fucking didn't give a shit about that post anymore. I already knew.
All I'm saying is that was a reason for there to be, there was a light in the clouds, there's a reason to have a sliver of faith.
Dude, looking at a little ember, look, some person lights a match in the darkness, and everything is swallowed up by the abyss, and there's monsters lurking out there. The little match isn't going to save you from being devoured. It's not going to fucking save you. Oh man, the sidestep was good. I'll ignore the 1700 homing moves in the presentation they showed us. I'll ignore the screen exploding off of Reina's down too, because Nakatsu made a post. No. There is such a thing. There is such a thing as being optimistic in the face of doom. Like, true doom. Like, sometimes you need to be like, okay, shit. Let's figure this out. Sometimes it is just a bad situation. Like, and there's no light. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Also, Red Spider Plays said this emergency patch won't fix the game, by the way. That is true. From what they've told us, and what we read out the live reaction on that, we actually think in some ways that this might actually make the game even more explosive. Combo damage going down, but health going up, which means poking's going to get nerfed. So
and more 50-50s and more fucked up situations.
Well,
some people are like, oh, well, it'll create more interaction. Yeah, more interaction for us to get guess all day. Great.
Well, I mean, that if the frame advantage would change that, obviously, if they touch frame advantage. I just don't have faith that when they talk about overpowered moves, I just don't think any of us have any faith that they know what the fuck they're doing and what's broken and why.
Or what makes them look overpowered, right?
There's no reason to have faith in that at this point, after season 2.
Yeah,
100%.
And I guess one of the other things, too, is I asked this question on one King J and Mike Hollow's stream, and I'll ask you boys this too. When you see how they've talked about this game in the past, right? They themselves said high-level Tekken was boring. They themselves said that Tag 2 didn't sell well because sidestep was too strong. Why would you sidestep when you can block and punish? Admitting that heat was because they wanted to limit movement in the previews. They say all these things that, like, we were talking about this the other day, Malcolm, where I can't think of a time that they ever said anything glowing about the series outside of sales. Do we actually think that they even wanted to make a Tekken game at this point? Like, Tekken 7 sold 12 million copies, super successful. You had to make a sequel because if you don't slap the brand name on there, then, you know, what are you doing? You're sitting on a gold mine in terms of reputation. But does it feel more like they wanted to make a different fighting game and then we're just kind of forced to call it Tekken?
Yes.
100%.
The market dictates that it's easier to take an existing IP with brand recognition and do what you want with that than to try a new IP and watch it burn. That's just the way the market works now. So it makes sense that they would want to do it. It's just a shame that they did it.
Yeah, and
Yep.
perfect example of that. What's the one thing that Harada mentions other than sales that's glowing about the series?
New players coming in that don't know anything about the
No.
game.
No, it's the only thing that he holds on that he talks about glowing about this game is that it's the longest
running continuous
story.
franchise. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's
Yeah,
the only thing he cares. He's gonna hold on to the brand and run into the ground because he would rather continue this storyline that is mid to begin with. Even though I love it, but objectively, pretty fucking mid.
And just
But-
I just want to add, I don't think that it was done maliciously in any way.
No.
I think that there's a lot of bureaucratic nonsense that happens in the game industry, and sometimes developers are strapped and they can lose passion for a project or want to do something else, and their hands are forced. Right? They might not want to do the same thing over and over and over again, and it's just the name of the game, right? They got to do what they got to do. So if the developer wants to make another project, that's their prerogative. It's just a shame that sometimes, and we could be wrong. That might not be actually what happened. It feels like that's what happened, though.
But the
That they
sad
wanted
thing
to make
is
something
that
different.
We've seen that with other franchises where they replace these lead developers with someone who wants to champion the franchise and do right by it. Where I feel like Tekken has kind of been the opposite. Like you look at Street Fighter, right? Like their lead developer was gone after 5, and they get the two new guys. I forget their name, but they have continued to carry the torch and still make a Street Fighter game that feels like Street Fighter, while also implementing new things and not straying too far from the core tenets of the game. Where I feel like in Tekken 8, we get the lead developers from DOA and Soul Calibur. And it feels like they're trying to make it about those games and not about what Tekken is. They're not championing Tekken as we know it. They want all these new ideas that are very anti-Tekken because that's what they did in their games.
Yeah, and
That's part of why I feel like so much of it is just this giant skill issue. Like I feel like they're like the game didn't have to be ass. It didn't have to suck. Like, it just didn't. I don't think.
Also, want to point out something interesting that kind of runs contrary to what Harada's been saying about the popularity declining because of sidestep or wanting to make it more aggressive or any of this. Is that there was an interview that he did in the lead up to Tekken 8. This was, I think, before we had any beta test or anything like that, any gameplay, where the discussion turned to the future of the franchise and what he wants for Tekken. And one of the things he mentioned was that as a series, as a franchise, he would hate to see it end on a poor note. He wants the ending of Tekken, whenever that may be, to be something that the fans can truly appreciate for any given span of time. He's also said, after Season 2, that he not only puts a lot of faith in the new generation of developers of their team, but also wants to take responsibility for the bad things that happen. I wonder then if what happens as a result of this is that he brings in a new generation of team members, of people who want to make something bigger for the series. They want to say, hey, here's a series that is massive. How can we make it more bombastic? And they don't have necessarily the foundational knowledge to say, here's what we can improve upon while still keeping the core identity. They have, here's a series that's popular. Here's how it works on a systematic level. But what can we do to make it new? What does the new generation of Tekken look like? I think they had the same tagline actually for Tekken 4, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, they did. They did. I remember seeing the ads when I was growing up on the back of like Sony PlayStation Magazine, where that was literally the tagline with the Heihachi imprint on the wall. So
yeah. So I wonder if that's the thing. They want to make a new generation of Tekken, and it did not go as planned. Like Brenton said, I don't think it was done maliciously. I think there was a combination of some, bureaucratic meanderings behind the scenes that's more obvious in things like the Battle Pass, in things like the Tekken Shop. Obviously bureaucratic. Obviously that's going to be something that the shareholders like, hey, here's what makes money in the modern age. Yeah. Add that in. Hard to say what it impacted on a systems level, but there's that part. But I think there's also just the fact that they wanted to make something distinct for the series, and I don't think it was malicious. I think it was misguided.
But here's the question that I have: is you've had the same guys developing this game. I mean, Murray and Harada have been doing this together since T4. I believe that was Murray's first project with Harada was Tekken 4. Harada's been here since the very first one. He's the OG voice of Yoshimitsu. He's been here since the beginning. My thing is, when you bring up the only tag that the new generation of Tekken was the tagline of Tekken 4, and maybe this is the new generation of Tekken again. When we talk about this not being malicious and being misguided, the problem that I have with that, with giving them that much grace, is twofold. The aforementioned things about how much they've trashed the way that players interact with the game, which really does come off malicious as hell, like how dare you enjoy the game in a way that we don't want you to enjoy the game. You are wrong, we are right. I can't interpret that as anything other than malicious intent when they come and they scrap all of those foundations. It feels like an attack. The second thing is, I had floated this idea out in the past. What is the only other time they've talked big time about how this is like their vision of Tekken, right? Because they trashed the old Tekken and the way we played, and they're like, this is how we think Tekken should be played. This is our vision for the game. What is the only other time that they have talked so strongly about having a vision for the game? It's Tekken 4. So I feel like there's this push-pull. Well, and I feel like this is the problem. Is I feel like it is malicious, honestly. And I'm not saying to use this as an excuse to attack anyone. Like, no, obviously not. I think anyone that's calling for that's going too far. But I do think it is an attack on Tekken and an attack on Tekken fans, because I think when you look at the two times they tried to implement their vision and what they think the game should be, they got completely rebuked by the community now. 4 and 8. And I think that there's this push-pull between the community and the devs. The devs have wanted this game, I think, to play extremely aggressively with a lack of defensive options for 20 years. I think that's the reality that you have to face. Because Tekken, what was Tekken 4 infamous for? You couldn't fucking KBD. They took it out of the game, right? So like, I think
they also got rid of pushback too, by the way.
Correct, and they got rid of pushback. It's pure range zero Tekken all the time. So this isn't new. Harada and Murray have had this vision for Tekken for 20 years. It's just the time they implemented it 20 years ago, they almost both lost their fucking jobs. Harada had to take, what, a 6-month leave because he fell into a depression, wasn't sure if he was going to continue as a game dev because people didn't support his vision for the game. And it feels like, to me, like Tekken 5, right? Like, we all hold Tekken 5 on this pedestal, but Malcolm, I was telling you the other day, it almost... And now that we're having this conversation about whether it's malicious or not, I wonder if Tekken 5 is kind of malicious. Because... And the reason I'm saying that is because they're like, Tekken 4 had all this grit, all this effort in the story, all this beautiful artwork, this great vibe to it, which no one complains about, by the way. Everyone wants those parts. Everything that isn't the gameplay of Tekken 4, everyone wanted to see that come back. But I wonder if Tekken 5, because Tekken 5, outside of gameplay, is honestly trash when it comes to taking itself seriously. It turns the entire franchise into a joke, where it's like, if they looked at like, we're going to give you what you want then. You didn't like our serious vision for the game, you didn't like this passion project, you reject our love, fine, we're going to mail it in, pulse punching aliens, and fucking, like, you know, all this other shit, Asuka's falling into or Jin's falling into his cousin's boobs, all this other stupid shit that they put into the game, right? That just, we all know what we're talking about. Like, that's literally a cutscene in the game. That's a fucking character ending. It's an incest joke, for God's sakes. Like, hello? This game is almost, even that game, they're like, okay, we'll give you everything you want. The game doesn't take itself seriously, and the game that plays the way you want. And then that game ended up being super successful. And then the other games that came afterwards, moderate success to failure if you talk about Seg 2 sales. But it feels like, to me, like, it's almost like going backwards to them, going back to the basis of Tekken 3 was like, they had to do it. They had to do it for us, and then they spited the other things. And I feel like that's like kind of how it always has felt. Like, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if they felt like they've been making not their game but our game, and they resent us for it. And here's our shit turd in exchange for that. Yes,
what they want to exist is at odds with that. Yeah.
With what sells. Crazy Games just said, didn't Harada say KBD wasn't intended, and also Brian taunted upper, but they kept it because the community loves it? Didn't play Tekken until 7. Korean Backdash, they did touch it. So Korean Backdash they touched, they removed it in 4, no one bought 4. So they had to bring it back in 5. So they already played around that idea. Brian Taunt Jet Upper, the only reason that didn't happen, you're right, was community feedback, for sure. But keep in mind, he did admit too, which is even more alarming, that if they could have done a hotfix, it would have been hotfixed. Right? It took him a while to grow up to grow into the idea of accepting taunt as a mechanic. He would have just gotten rid of it, and that's like the coolest part about Brian. Every Brian player loves the taunt setup. That's like 50% of the reason why you play him. The other 50% is because he's a badass looking fucking robot.
Not until Tekken 8.
yeah. Well, and
new Brian players don't even like taunt. They don't even use it.
But I think that what is more emblematic of that is that he used that, if you recall, as a justification for removing the key charge, where he said, well, I'm surprised we didn't remove the key charge and change the key charge mechanic earlier, because I coded in 8 hours and I put no thought into it. So, like, he's surprised that everyone made such a big deal out of it because he didn't think anything of it. And this is kind of like the disconnect between the developers and the community, right? Where it's like, they put stuff in, right? The old way, they put stuff in, and it sounds like to me, based on what Harada said, that they were just throwing up a bunch of shit in, not knowing how it works, not having a clear direction for the game, and they Bob Ross their way with a million happy little accidents into something that was so complex and deep and so fun to engage with. And in that same regard, when he flippantly said that, well, I didn't put any time into key charge, so like, why is it a big deal essentially that I'm changing it now? It kind of gives me this sort of ick to it, where it's almost like, do the developers look at this and say, well, because all of the beauty of this game was incidental and unintended, does it mean that they don't value any of it? Because to them, they only value things that they intentionally put into the game? Because, like, that key charge change, right? I'm going to speak for myself, but I think I can speak for the whole community. Like, I put hours into key charge setups back in the day. It's something really cool to explore. I think the community over the years has put thousands of hours into key charge setups, and it's just all gone. So, like, you might have put 8 hours and not thought anything of key charge, but the community collectively has put so much thought in that mechanic that changing it without warning is just bullshit. You know, and it makes you wonder, like, what's next? What's next? Because how many things are core Tekken that were just incidental that they think are worthless because they didn't put value on it, but the community puts value into?
But that's the thing that doesn't track to me. That, like, if that were the case, then key charge would have been removed after a game, or KBD would have been removed after just a game. But you have these mechanics that people start to lean on over the course of 3-4 games that, like, okay, it might have been incidental, but then you kept it in the game for over a decade. You obviously had to have some deeper opinion than just, oh, I coded it in 8 hours, so it didn't really mean much. Like, it meant enough for you to keep it in each title after the fact. Like, I would get it if key charge was removed after a game. I would get it. But, like, key charge has been around forever, so, like, are we really saying that, like, oh, there's no thought into it. I mean, that's why I feel like this game's malicious, because he's saying all these things that don't track with the actions. The actions aren't like mounting up to the words, and that's why I think there's malicious. Like they have to be being malicious, because like they're saying these things, but then their actions are doing something that when you look into, like, definitely show some deeper level thinking. Like, this isn't just like, oh, I got rid of key charge after 10 years because it was just an accident. Like, no, that's not why you removed key charge. Like, let's be honest, it's not. I don't know. That's what I see. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, no, it's hard to argue with it. It feels like this game is like the ship of Theseus as a video game. If I replace every plank of it but still call it the same name, is it still the same game?
Yeah.
Like,
Damn.
I think that they're really testing that theory as far as they can push it. And, I don't know, like, I think they've obviously hit their breaking point. That I don't think any of us actually like hopeful on that response. Like be honest, are you hopeful? Do you think that what we know is that a good direction? Like,
no,
I don't think so.
I think we're scratching the surface of how bad it's gonna get. We're getting a taste for it, but we're gonna see the outrage get worse and worse the longer these problems go on. So they're gonna nerf combo damage, and people are still gonna be upset. Then they're gonna nerf some dumb shit that no one cares about next, and then we're still gonna complain about it. Like, I see this as just the start of the outrage. I think this is gonna go on for quite a bit longer, and we as a community need to like kind of organize our efforts to get to where we want to go. Because for as long as we're gonna keep fighting with each other, like, they're gonna keep doing this dumb shit, you know? Like, we're too divided right now to give a clear message to the developers of what needs to happen. Everyone's just gonna argue online with each other until the devs just say, "Fuck it, we're doing our vision." And that's where we're at right now. Like, we're too far in the weeds that like the devs are saying, "Fuck it, I'll do it myself," and they're doing these dumb changes. Like, out of all the outrage, who here complained about combo damage the most? Like,
there's a lot more about combo length, but not damage. Where the most of the complaints.
Length. I understand that it was pretty, like, it was on the list of complaints, but pretty low for the most part. The thing that concerned everybody was all the mid homing plus on block moves that were added, and no mention about that. Not a single, like, they're very ambiguous in their phrasing about nerfing strong moves, but they're not saying what the strong moves are or what makes them strong in their opinion. Like, if it's a strong move that loops into itself, like the clap, like if they're saying the jack clap is the move that is the problem, then like, we need to be having a different conversation, because as much as that is a problem, there are 100 other problems that exist, maybe even worse than the stupid clap that everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I just don't even know how you begin to untangle it, honestly. Yeah.
Mass exodus to an older Tekken game. That's the only way.
But you know, go ahead, Tiny.
Oh, I was just gonna say real quick, like, I'm not hopeful, because like that they'll. I mean, I think I said this beginning, but I'm not hopeful that they'll do something on purpose. But I think that the things that they're showing, like, cause like you were kind of talking about that idea of like, once they they put something in the game and people come to love that thing, it's kind of like a joint ownership. Like, it's not just theirs, it's ours too. Yeah. And like, in that like regard, I feel like we're seeing some of the changes, at least like even the vague stuff that they're talking about, are kind of like antithesis to the things that they were already doing, which is showing that, hey, they are clearly giving way in some way, shape, or form. Now, like, as to whether or not that'll be executed, you know, how much health are we getting? How much lower is the chip damage? Whatever. Because, I mean, you know, this patch is supposed to reduce chip damage too, but it doesn't feel like it did it? Like, I don't know. I feel like this is a sign that, like, again, like, maybe in 2 years, maybe we bully them into a playable game by accident.
Well, I think what they're flirting with, though, is this game even going to get 2 more years of financial support from the devs, the way that it's tanking? I looked at the player numbers, I mentioned them earlier, but like 3,100 last night in prime time and 8 hours on a weekend. Like, considering the fact that they have said that the game servers, like for Fight Lounge and stuff like that, Harada did comment saying that it was like prohibitively expensive to keep this game running because of what they've added. I wonder if they even have that time.
Reaches a breaking point. where they're like, "Fuck, you better fix the game, or we're gonna go under."
Well, that's what I mean. I think that you're running a risk here where time's of the essence. You have to bring these people back because at the end of the day, the executives, they're not going to throw money into a passion project into a money pit. I could easily see this, like, it's like the same thing that happened, like Soul Calibur 6. We mentioned Soul Calibur in the past year when we were talking about Nikatsu. Nikatsu didn't work on 6, but he did work on 4, which also has a very low opinion in the Soul Calibur community. And when we're talking about Soul Calibur 6, right, from a sales perspective, actually, like, that game did pretty decent. Like, enough that Soul Calibur fans thought that the game should have been considered a success. I believe it sold at 2 million copies. And yet, at that point, right, with much lower expectations, 2 million copies for a franchise that was smaller than Tekken was enough for Bandai to say, we're not supporting this past the second season. And here we are, and about the same time frame that Soul Calibur got the plug pulled on it, Tekken, which has much loftier expectations, sitting at 3 million copies. And I know you'll see a lot of people on Twitter say, like, oh, 3 million copies is more than what Tekken 7 sold in the first year, but there's a caveat to it. Just to give background to anyone watching, that Tag 2 is the worst selling game in the franchise, sold 1.5 million copies, fewer copies than Tekken 1. So when we get to Tekken 7, Tekken 7 is trying to build a brand new basically consumer base. Like, it brought in the hardcore Tag 2 players, sure, but then it brought in 10 million more people that didn't own Tag 2. And it did that over a course of 7 years because it had this long-standing community that vouched for the quality of the game. And it delivered time and time and time again, despite what people on Twitter would tell you. The game doesn't grow like that and doesn't continue to grow and sell 2 million extra copies in its final year of life like it did in 2024 without being a quality game and without having interest. And so when you're coming off of that, the most successful game in the franchise, right, the idea should be that a lot of that 12 million user install base would move over to 8. So you've only got, in your first year, you've only brought in 25% of the player base of 7, which I would say is bad. And then on top of that, as well, 2 million of those sales for this game came in the first 3 weeks. And so if you go from March to March, so March 2024 to March 2025, they didn't announce another million sales, their third millionth sale, until March. Which, if that is the case, it's a 12-month span of only 1 million sales, which would be worse. That'd be half of what 7 sold in the final year of its life. And I just don't see, like, if 2 million is not good enough for SoCal 6, and 2 million, and that game is probably expected to sell half as much as Tekken, I don't see how 3 million suffices here. I just don't see it, and I don't see anyone buying this game. Like, that's the biggest problem about this patch. We mentioned it like a couple hours ago about, like, I don't even know if there's anything they could do to save it, because at the end of the day now, at the end, well, not just people not going back, right? Because if you're behind in the sales, you're not even trying to bring people back. You still need to bring more people in, right? And so, like, the problem is, if I check on Steam, what's the review score on Steam right now? Let's see. Overwhelmingly negative recent, 8% in the last 30 days, 54% all time. Or I check IGN. IGN's written severe articles. Score Esports has 2 videos about this in a negative light, which you like for the place where people who are unsure which fighting game they should buy, for people that just were like, hey, I want to buy a fighting game, like Tekken 7 was that for people because they got overwhelmingly good press. It was the most viewed on Twitch outside of Smash, if we're counting Smash. Like, the casuals saw that was a thriving community with a great, like, reputation.
Yeah, exactly.
And in this case, if they need to make up sales, I think they're dead in the water, because even if they fix everything, it's like No Man's Sky, or how it took Cyberpunk, like,
exactly,
Cyberpunk so long, you know. At the end of the day, your first impression is the most important thing, and a lot of the people who don't know anything about this game are now, when they look it up, are just going to see, this game sucks, this game's ass, this game's broken. You're dead. The project's dead.
Yeah. And I was gonna say because I like it's just a weird thing where like I don't know, like people say like oh they're making these changes for the casuals where casuals kind of catch flack here as though it's the casuals' fault this is happening. But like I don't know, I was a Tekken 7 casual, and that was how I got to the game. And none of the people not liking Tekken 7 discourse penetrated my sphere. Like it didn't get to me. It didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like Tekken 7 was cool, and I was like, yo, like I was a casual. I hopped on and I bought the game, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I enjoyed it. And I found community in that, and I had a good time. Tekken 8, I have casuals who play. Like I know casuals who play that game. It's not fun. Like they don't like this shit. You know what I mean? Because it's not fun on a base level like the shit that they've done. So it's like, it's like who is this for? And like why? Like how is?
They've made this game for the casual in terms of viewership and not necessarily playing. And I think there's a disconnect there. There's a disconnect because they're intending for this game to play like this Michael Bay spectacle on screen.
Michael Bay-esque Tekken.
Where everyone is in Twitch chat going, oh my god, this shit is so hype. When it's now the opposite. Like, everyone's seeing this and like that Jin sequence, right? I could easily see in their head being like, wow, this is cool. He's doing all this sparks and like he's flying at you and he's hitting you and he's doing this big heat smash in the wall splat. Man, that's cool. Not a single person thinks that's fucking cool, by the way. But like, that's the disconnect. It's made for the casual in terms of viewing.
Yeah,
and
not playing.
That's always been the biggest problem. They don't care how the game plays. They care about how it looks on Twitch. And that's always been their biggest gripe with older Tekkens.
And to add to that too, to defend the casual player, because I pretty much, like, you know, you guys know I don't play ranked or anything like that. I just sit here and I try to play Tekken with strong players like Jerry or Malcolm or any of the guys in this room, really. But then the other time I'm spending equally as much time trying to help casuals learn the game. And every casual that I've ever helped, and I've helped a lot now over the last 5 years, all of them just want to play Tekken. They want to learn Tekken. They want to interact with Tekken. You don't buy Tekken to play Street Fighter. You don't buy Tekken to play Guilty Gear Strive. You buy Tekken to play Tekken. These people, like we've probably been running a bit long, so I kind of do want to end it on this sort of point that will. Do we not think, to some degree, that when the devs talk about the casualization of a franchise, that really what they're saying is that they think that we're stupid? Because when I see these decisions, they always focus on taking away the depth, and it's like you're assuming that the people that want to play the game and are bad at the game aren't just bad at the game because they're new, but they're bad at the game because they can't understand and wrap their heads around complex concepts. That's the way that I see it. And I feel like if the people that don't want to interact with a complex game like Tekken, its reputation precedes it. People know. If you do any research into the game whatsoever, which if you're casual, like, here's the thing about casuals. A lot of casuals do actually make informed purchasing decisions. That's why they're casuals. They look into things because all they care about is the thing good. If thing is good, I will try it for a month. That's what a casual does. And so it's like, you know, I feel like the vast majority of those casual players that actually knew what they were getting into to a degree. And I feel like the dumbification of the game is actually an insult, not just to the legacy players that have put time into it, but it's doubly so an insult to the people that want to learn the game, because basically it's just saying like, oh yeah, you're not good, you're not smart, here you go, we're going to give the game to you on rails.
Yeah, the Oki change, where they just took Oki out of the game, some people, like, you know, like I talked about this with Tibbs a little bit, and I won't mention names, but, you know, they were like, bro, like, them taking out tech roll catches, that's a defensive buff. And I was like, what?
No,
and I was also like, I was also just like, why would you take out Oki though? Like, why would you take out that type of thinking? That's what makes the game in depth. That's why people enjoy the game. You know?
Simplification isn't a buff, because there was already an answer before. Right? There's already an answer before, so it's not really a buff to anyone that knew the answer. It's not a buff. It's just idiocracy, essentially. We're becoming idiocracy.
Yep. It was just like dumbing it down to the point of like, there's no way that you won't understand how to get out of this situation, because there's no way to fail that test now.
All right. All right, I think we'll wrap it up. Anyone got any final thoughts that you want to get out before I end the stream?
I got one. I just wanted to follow up on what was just said. I don't think. It can come off as like an insult to someone's intelligence, but I don't think Okay, so what I'm trying to say is the casualization of Tekken. I don't think it's actually aimed at the casual who would have played Tekken. I think it's aimed at the people who never would have played a fighting game in their life, but they can force something and hit some buttons and do some cool stuff and win, and that's who they want. They literally want people to buy the game who never would have had any interest in buying the game anyway, and are still never going to buy this game anyway. They're just trying to get people who never would have wanted to play, so they're making changes for people who don't care because they're not actually watching the game.
But
their eyes aren't even on it.
The thing is, though, about making that point is like how, and I know that Price has made this point many times, these people don't stay.
Yeah.
Like if they don't care enough about the game, they probably get on for like an hour or two maybe, and they usually might get on an hour or two, but you won't see it consistently happening.
Yeah, I just feel like the changes are made to get people to buy the game that were never going to buy it in the first place. And nothing they can do would make them buy this game. But those changes are made for those people to increase sales, not actually to casualize the game. Because we see similar changes in other genres and in other games where the game just becomes the path to gratification is faster and simpler, right? To get the hyper casual is what I'll call it, the person who plays games on their phones and that's it. Like those type of people to play the game, right? They're never going to buy Tekken in the first place. But it feels like these changes were made for them, not the basic casual that would have bought the game and played it for a month.
But that's the other problem too, is there's a fundamental misunderstanding amongst game devs, fighting game devs particularly, that this genre is never going to be that. It's never going to be that. It's not intuitive enough. Like FPS does so well because it's very easy to understand right away. Okay, I point at the thing and I click my mouse or I pull the trigger. Like, doesn't get more simple than that. It's a very simple gameplay loop that has infinite skill ceiling. That's why it brings in casuals and pros. But the way fighting games are is that the skill floor is so fucking low that you're falling through the floor and descending to hell when you start. So, like, it just can never be that way. Because the type of casuals that they're talking about, you're right, like, those people just want instant gratification. And I would say fundamentally, one of the other problems, too, is, like, I can hand over Call of Duty to someone, and, like, if they're just playing casually, they might not care that they go, like, 6-25. There's a lot of people that pick up the game and play that. Because at the end of the day, you can go 6-25 and you'll still win games of team deathmatch when you're carried by your friends or whatever. Fighting games will never attract that crowd, specifically because no one can carry you. You will get that you lose repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over. And like the Call of Duty shitter, the Candy Crush shitter, all these people, they are not playing games that make them feel bad. They're never going to buy a game that can make them feel bad. Because God knows, every person here loves Tekken. Every person here has felt bad about, bad from Tekken many times. And I'm not talking about Season 2 patch. I'm talking like yelling at the screen when some shit happens that you understand, or you lost to someone that you feel like you should have beat. Like, these games will bring out negative emotion. It's the nature of a competitive game. And there's no way that it can ever be made casually without basically becoming something completely different to me.
Talk to him, coach.
All right, we're going to end it here. Thanks everyone for the talk. Thanks everyone for viewing. Stick around. We're going to find someone to raid. And thanks for coming on, guys. We should probably do this again sometime if you're down.
Yeah, this is fun.
All right, perfect.
I like getting bullied.
I like getting bullied. You better be here. You're the pin cushion going forward. All right, see you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.